The procrastination paradox. You're not lazy. You're afraid. And for the next 3 hours, I'm going to prove it to you. But more importantly, I'm going to show you exactly what you're afraid of, why your brain has been protecting you, and how to finally break free from procrastination forever. Right now, as you're watching this, there's probably something you're avoiding. Maybe it's sitting in another browser tab. Maybe it's that email you haven't responded to. Maybe it's the project that's been almost ready to start for 6 months. And here's what every productivity guru won't tell you. Procrastination is not a time management problem. It never was. Procrastination is an emotional regulation problem. Your brain isn't broken. It's actually doing exactly what it was designed to do, protect you from emotional discomfort. The average person wastes 218 minutes every single day on procrastination. That's 3 hours and 38 minutes. Do the math. That's 55 days per year. 55 days of your life, gone. But here's the part that should both terrify you and excite you at the same time. What if your procrastination is actually trying to tell you something? Let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. What are you protecting yourself from? Because every time you choose scrolling over starting, Netflix over creating, delay over action, your brain is making a calculated decision. It's saying, the emotional pain of doing this task is greater than the pain of not doing it. And that changes everything. Because if procrastination is emotional protection, then the solution isn't another productivity app. It isn't another time-blocking technique. It isn't waking up at 5 a.m. The solution is understanding what emotion you're running from. Is it the fear of failure? The fear of success? The fear of judgment? The fear that if you actually try, you might discover you're not as capable as you thought? Or maybe, and this is the one that gets people, maybe you're afraid that if you complete this goal, if you become this new version of yourself, you'll have to leave your old identity behind. Here's what's going to happen in the next 3 hours. You're going to understand yourself better than you have in years, maybe ever. We're not doing surface-level tips. We're not talking about productivity hacks that last 3 days. We're going deep. You're going to discover the real reason you procrastinate, and I promise you, it's not what you think. You're going to learn the neuroscience of why your brain is literally wired to avoid important tasks, and more importantly, how to rewire it. You're going to get frameworks that actually work, not theory, not concepts. Actual systems used by Olympic athletes, billion-dollar entrepreneurs, and people who've transformed their entire lives. And by the end, you're not going to be someone who tries to stop procrastinating. You're going to become someone who takes action. That's going to be your new identity. But I need to be honest with you about something. This isn't going to be comfortable. We're going to talk about things that might make you squirm. We're going to confront fears you've been avoiding. We're going to look at patterns you've been hiding from yourself. And here's the hard truth. Some of you are going to watch all 3 hours and still do nothing. Because information isn't transformation. Knowledge isn't action. But some of you, maybe you, are going to have one of those moments. You know the ones. Where something clicks. Where you see yourself clearly for the first time. Where you realize, oh my God, that's why I've been stuck. And everything changes. I've seen it happen hundreds of times. The college student who went from failing to dean's list. The entrepreneur who was paralyzed by ideas for 3 years, who launched a business in 30 days. The writer who was blocked for a decade, who finished their novel in 6 months. The only difference between them and everyone else? They stopped just consuming content, and they actually implemented. So here's how this is going to work. First, we're going to destroy everything you think you know about procrastination. I'm going to show you the hidden iceberg, what's really happening beneath the surface. Then, we're going into your brain. The neuroscience, but explained in a way that actually makes sense and gives you power. After that, the execution system. The actual frameworks, the tools, the tactics that turn knowledge into action. Then we go deeper. The inner game. The perfectionism, the fear, the self-sabotage. We're going to heal that. And finally, we're going to build your personal blueprint, your unique system. Because cookie-cutter solutions don't work. You're not everyone else. Throughout this, there's a complete workbook available. You'll want to download it. Link is in the description. This isn't just a watch and forget video. This is a workshop. You're going to do exercises. You're going to pause and reflect. You're going to customize everything to your life. So here's my invitation. For the next 3 hours, go all in. Turn off notifications. Close the other tabs. Get a notebook. This is your time. Your future self is watching right now. They're wondering if you're finally going to do this. If you're finally going to stop letting fear run your life. This is your moment. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Right now. And I promise you, if you show up fully for these 3 hours, you will never be the same person again. Let's end procrastination. Forever. Let's begin. Act 1. The Hidden Truth. The secret language of procrastination. Everything you know about procrastination is wrong, and I mean everything. For decades, we've been told that procrastination is a character flaw, a sign of weakness, a lack of discipline. We've been sold planners, apps, morning routines, and motivational quotes. And yet, you're still here, still struggling, still avoiding that one thing you know you should be doing. Here's why. We've been solving the wrong problem. Procrastination isn't something you do. It's something you say. Your procrastination is a language. It's your subconscious mind trying to communicate with you, and you've been ignoring the message. Think about it. When a child acts out, we don't just punish the behavior. We ask, what's wrong? What are they trying to tell us? But when we procrastinate, we just beat ourselves up and promise to do better tomorrow. We never stop to ask, what is this trying to tell me? So let's decode the language. There are 7 core messages your procrastination is sending you, and once you understand which one applies to you, everything changes. Message number 1. This doesn't align with my values. Your procrastination might be telling you that this task, this goal, this project, it doesn't actually matter to you. Maybe it's someone else's dream. Maybe it's what you think you should want, not what you actually want. Your brain is resisting because deep down, you know this isn't your path. And that's not laziness. That's wisdom. Message number 2. I don't have clarity. You can't start what you can't see. If the task is vague, if the outcome is unclear, if you don't know what success looks like, your brain will avoid it. Because ambiguity feels like danger. Your procrastination is saying, define this better. Break it down. Give me a clear target. Once you have clarity, resistance drops dramatically. Message number 3. I'm protecting myself from judgment. This is the big one. You're not avoiding the task. You're avoiding what the task represents. If you write that book and it fails, you're a failed writer. If you launch that business and it flops, you're a failed entrepreneur. But if you never finish, you're just someone who hasn't tried yet. Your potential remains intact. Your procrastination is a shield protecting your ego from the possibility of public failure. Message number 4. I need a break, but won't admit it. Sometimes procrastination isn't resistance, it's exhaustion. Your body and mind are depleted, but you won't give yourself permission to rest because rest feels like weakness. So your brain takes rest anyway, but in the form of mindless scrolling, binge-watching, or busy work that feels productive but isn't. Your procrastination is saying, I'm burned out. I need recovery. And that's not a character flaw. That's a biological need. Message number 5. I don't believe I can succeed. If you fundamentally don't believe you're capable of completing this task, your brain won't let you start. Why waste energy on something that's going to fail anyway? This often comes from past experiences. You tried before and failed. You watched someone else try and fail. You've internalized a story that says, people like me don't succeed at things like this. Your procrastination is protecting you from confirming that belief. Message number 6. The task is poorly defined. This is different from lack of clarity. This is about the task itself being set up wrong. Maybe it's too big. Maybe there's no real deadline. Maybe the first step is unclear. Maybe you're trying to do 5 things at once instead of one thing completely. Your brain looks at this mess and says, "Not today." And honestly, it's right. You need to redesign the task before you can execute it. Message number 7. I'm rebelling against external control. This is the hidden rebel. Someone told you to do this. Your boss, your parents, your spouse, society, even your past self. And a part of you doesn't want to be told what to do. Even if you consciously agree with the task, your subconscious is saying, "I'm not your trained monkey." This procrastination is about autonomy, about freedom, about reclaiming choice in a life that feels controlled. Now here's what I want you to do. Pause this video. Yes, actually pause it. Think about the thing you've been procrastinating on. The real thing. Not the dishes, not the emails, the big thing. The thing that matters. And ask yourself, which message is this? Which of these 7 is my procrastination trying to tell me? Because once you know the message, you can respond to it. You can't solve a problem you don't understand. Let me give you a real example. There was a CEO, let's call him Marcus, ran a successful consulting firm, 7-figure revenue, 20 employees. From the outside, living the dream. But Marcus had this problem. He would procrastinate on emails for days, sometimes weeks. Important client emails, partnership opportunities. His team started having to work around him, and Marcus felt terrible about it. He tried everything, different email apps, time blocking, accountability partners. Nothing worked. Then one day, in a coaching session, someone asked him, "What is your procrastination trying to tell you?" And Marcus just stopped. He sat there for 2 full minutes, and then he said something that changed everything. He said, "I think I hate my business." Turns out, Marcus had built a business doing work he was good at, not work he loved. He was excellent at corporate consulting, so that's what he did. But his actual passion was teaching, writing, creating content. And every time he opened his email, he was reminded that he was living someone else's version of success. His procrastination wasn't laziness. It was his soul screaming, "This isn't your path." Within 6 months, Marcus sold his consulting firm, started creating online courses, built a YouTube channel. Today, he makes less money, and he's never been happier. His procrastination didn't go away because he got more disciplined. It went away because he finally listened to what it was trying to tell him. That's the power of understanding the secret language of procrastination. You stop fighting yourself and start listening to yourself. So I'll ask you again, what is your procrastination trying to tell you? The Procrastination Iceberg. Now that you understand procrastination is communication, let me show you something that's going to blow your mind. What you see on the surface is almost nothing compared to what's happening underneath. Think of procrastination like an iceberg. Everyone focuses on what's above the water, the obvious stuff. You're scrolling Instagram instead of working. You're watching Netflix instead of exercising. You're snacking instead of studying. And so we try to fix those behaviors. We delete the apps. We cancel the subscriptions. We hide the snacks. And it doesn't work. Because those aren't the problem. Those are just symptoms. First, childhood conditioning and parental expectations. This is massive. When you were young, you learned what was safe and what was dangerous. Not physically dangerous, emotionally dangerous. Maybe you learned that mistakes meant disappointment, that failure meant love withdrawn, that success came with pressure and expectation. So now, as an adult, your brain still runs those programs. You procrastinate not because you're lazy, but because starting means risking that childhood pain again. Second, identity conflicts. You have a story about who you are. I'm not the type of person who exercises. I'm not a morning person. I'm not good with money. I'm not creative. And every time you try to do something that contradicts that story, your brain sounds the alarm. Because if you succeed at this thing, If you become someone who does exercise or wakes up early or manages money well, then who are you? Your identity has to die and be rebuilt. And that's terrifying. So you procrastinate to keep your current identity safe. Third, unprocessed trauma and learned helplessness. Maybe you tried something before and it went badly, really badly. And you never processed that experience, never healed from it. So now, whenever something similar comes up, your nervous system remembers. It says, last time we did this, we got hurt. We're not doing that again. This isn't procrastination. This is protection. Your body is trying to keep you safe from a threat that doesn't exist anymore, but feels very real. Fourth, rebellion against authority, even your own authority. This is fascinating. Part of you wants to achieve the goal, but another part of you doesn't want to be told what to do, even by yourself, especially by yourself. This often comes from growing up in controlling environments where you had no autonomy. So now, unconsciously, you rebel against any structure or demand, even when you're the one making the demand. It's a delayed rebellion against your parents, your teachers, your boss. But the person you're really hurting is yourself. And fifth, fear of losing your current identity. This deserves extra attention because it's so counterintuitive. You'd think we'd want to upgrade our identity, right? Become better versions of ourselves? But here's the truth. Your current identity is comfortable. It's known. You have friends who relate to this version of you. You have routines that match this version of you. You have explanations for why your life looks the way it does. If you transform, if you actually achieve this goal, you might lose all of that. You might outgrow your friends. You might have to admit your excuses were just excuses. You might have to take responsibility for your life. And that's terrifying. Here's the research that makes this all make sense. Studies show that 95% of procrastination is subconscious. 95%. That means when you think you're consciously choosing to scroll instead of work, you're not. Your subconscious already made the decision based on these deep, hidden factors. You're just experiencing the aftermath and blaming your willpower. Let me tell you about a student I worked with. Her name was Sarah, pre-med, brilliant. Could have gone to any medical school she wanted, but she kept procrastinating on her applications. She'd sit down to write her personal statement, and suddenly she'd need to reorganize her room, or text her friends, or research random medical facts that had nothing to do with the application. Everyone told her she was self-sabotaging, that she was scared of rejection, the usual stuff. But when we went deeper, when we dove below the surface, we found something else entirely. Sarah grew up in a working-class immigrant family, first generation. Her parents sacrificed everything so she could have opportunities they never had, and Sarah loved them deeply. But here's what she realized. If she became a doctor, if she went to medical school and entered this elite professional world, she would be leaving her family behind. Not physically, emotionally. She would speak a different language, live in different circles, have experiences her family couldn't relate to. She would become someone her parents couldn't fully understand anymore. And that felt like betrayal, like abandoning the people who gave her everything. So her procrastination wasn't about fear of failure. It was about fear of success. Success meant losing her identity as a daughter they could relate to. Success meant loneliness. Once Sarah understood this, once she brought it to the surface, everything changed. She had honest conversations with her parents about her fears. She realized she could honor them while still pursuing her path. She could be both a doctor and their daughter. The procrastination didn't disappear overnight, but it lost its power. Because she understood it. She could see the iceberg. Your procrastination DNA. Now that you understand what's below the surface, let's get specific. Let's figure out your unique procrastination pattern. Because here's what the standard personality tests won't tell you. You don't just procrastinate. You procrastinate in a specific way, for specific reasons, following a specific pattern. I call this your procrastination DNA. And once you identify it, you can stop using generic solutions that don't work and start using targeted strategies designed for your specific pattern. There are 9 archetypal patterns. Most people have a primary and a secondary. As I describe each one, pay attention to which ones resonate, not intellectually, viscerally. Which ones make you think, "Oh God, that's me." Pattern number 1, the perfectionist prisoner. You don't start because nothing you create will ever be good enough. You have impossibly high standards. You'd rather do nothing than do something imperfect. You spend hours planning and preparing, but never executing. Your motto is, if it's worth doing perfectly, and that's exactly why you never do it. Pattern number 2, the thrill seeker. You actually need the pressure of a deadline to function. Without adrenaline, without urgency, you can't focus. You've trained your brain to only work in crisis mode. You tell yourself you work better under pressure, and maybe that's true. But you're also living in a constant state of stress and barely averted disaster. The calm, planned approach feels boring. You need the drama. Pattern number 3, the invisible rebel. On the surface, you're agreeable, compliant, a people pleaser, but underneath, you're quietly sabotaging. When someone tells you to do something, even if you agree with it, a part of you resists. Not openly, passively. You say yes and then just don't do it. This is how you maintain a sense of control in a life that feels controlled. Your procrastination is your silent protest. Pattern number 4, the overwhelmed achiever. You're actually highly productive. You get a lot done. But you procrastinate on the things that matter most. The big, important, life-changing things. Because you're so busy with urgent tasks, with putting out fires, with responding to other people's needs, that you never have space for your own dreams. Your procrastination isn't laziness, it's misdirected energy. You're running on a hamster wheel while your real goals sit untouched. Pattern number 5, the decision dodger. You procrastinate because you can't decide which path to take, which option is best. What if you choose wrong? So you keep researching, keep gathering information, keep waiting for certainty that never comes. Your procrastination isn't about action, it's about commitment. Once you commit to one path, all other paths close, and that feels like death. So you stay in limbo, where all possibilities remain open and none are realized. Pattern number 6, the meaning seeker. You only take action on tasks that feel meaningful, purposeful, aligned with your values. Everything else, no matter how important objectively, feels hollow. So you procrastinate on the mundane, the administrative, the practical. You need inspiration to act. You need to feel the significance. This makes you great at passion projects and terrible at everything else. Your life is full of started masterpieces and ignored basics. Pattern number 7, the energy mismatch. You're doing the right tasks at the wrong times. You try to do creative work when your brain is fried. You schedule deep thinking in the afternoon when your best hours are morning. You force yourself to power through when your body is screaming for rest. Your procrastination isn't resistance. It's misalignment. You're not honoring your natural rhythms, and your body is fighting back. Pattern number 8, the self-saboteur. Deep down, you don't believe you deserve success. Maybe because of shame, maybe because of guilt, maybe because success would prove someone wrong about you and you're loyal to their narrative. You get close to achieving something, and then you torpedo it. You miss the meeting, you forget the deadline, you say the wrong thing. This isn't accidental, it's unconscious self-protection. If you never fully succeed, you never have to deal with the fear that you're not enough. Pattern number 9, the freedom fighter. You resist all structure, all systems, all routines, because structure feels like prison. You value spontaneity, flexibility, freedom above all else. The problem is, nothing meaningful gets built without some structure. So you procrastinate on anything that requires consistency or discipline. You tell yourself you're creative and free-spirited, and you are, but you're also stuck. Because freedom without direction is just chaos. Now here's the key insight that changes everything. You don't have just one pattern. You have a primary and a secondary. Maybe you're mostly a perfectionist prisoner, but when that doesn't work, you become a thrill seeker and manufacture crisis. Maybe you're a meaning seeker most of the time, but with certain tasks, you become an invisible rebel. Understanding both patterns is crucial, because you can't solve your procrastination with a one-size-fits-all approach. A strategy that works for the thrill seeker will backfire for the perfectionist prisoner. A solution for the decision dodger will frustrate the freedom fighter. So take a moment. Which pattern is your primary? Which one shows up most often in your life? And which is your secondary? Which one emerges when you're stressed or when the stakes are high? Write them down, because everything we do from this point forward will be customized to your unique procrastination DNA. This is the end of Act 1. You now understand that procrastination is communication. You've seen what's below the surface, and you've identified your unique pattern. In Act 2, we're going into your brain, the neuroscience of why this happens and how to rewire it. This is where it gets really interesting. Act 2, the neuroscience revolution, the battle inside your brain. Let's talk about what's actually happening inside your skull when you procrastinate. Because once you understand the neuroscience, you'll stop blaming yourself and start working with your brain instead of against it. Here's the truth. Your brain is not designed for the modern world. It's designed for survival in a world that no longer exists. And that mismatch is causing almost all of your procrastination. Think of your brain as having two systems. I'm going to use a metaphor that makes this simple. Imagine your brain has an overprotective parent and an ambitious teenager living inside it. The overprotective parent is your limbic system. It's ancient, millions of years old. Its only job is to keep you alive. It doesn't care about your goals. It doesn't care about your dreams. It cares about one thing: avoiding pain and seeking pleasure right now. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. The ambitious teenager is your prefrontal cortex. It's modern, relatively new in evolutionary terms. It can think about the future. It can plan. It can imagine consequences. It can delay gratification. This is the part of you that sets goals and makes commitments. And these two are at war, constantly. When you decide to start that project, your prefrontal cortex is driving. It sees the future benefits, the career advancement, the personal growth, the sense of accomplishment. It's excited. But then you sit down to actually do it, and the limbic system takes over. It says, "This feels uncomfortable. This requires effort. I can see a dopamine hit over there on your phone. Let's go get that instead." And here's the problem. The limbic system is faster and stronger. It's the overprotective parent. It has veto power. Your prefrontal cortex can make all the plans at once, but if the limbic system feels threatened, it shuts everything down. This is why you can know exactly what you should do and still not do it. It's not a knowledge problem. It's not a willpower problem. It's a brain architecture problem. Now let me show you something that's going to make you angry and relieved at the same time. Your brain literally cannot see future rewards. Not really. Not the way it sees immediate rewards. When you look at your phone, your brain gets an instant dopamine hit. Immediate feedback. Instant gratification. When you think about finishing your project 3 months from now, there's nothing. No dopamine. No reward signal. Just abstract concepts and vague promises. Your brain is wired to prioritize the concrete over the abstract, the immediate over the delayed, the certain over the uncertain. So when you're choosing between scrolling now and success later, your brain sees scrolling as real and success as imaginary. This isn't your fault. This is how human brains work. For most of human history, this served us well. The immediate threat of a predator was more important than the abstract possibility of future prosperity. But now, in a world where all the most important things require delayed gratification, this wiring is destroying us. And there's another problem: the dopamine deficit disorder of modern life. Your brain has a baseline level of dopamine it expects. When you get more than baseline, you feel good. When you get less, you feel bad. Simple enough. But here's what's happened. social media, video games, junk food, pornography, endless entertainment. These have hijacked your brain's reward system. They provide massive, instant dopamine hits that your brain never evolved to handle. It's like giving someone who's used to natural sugars unlimited access to pure, refined sugar. Their taste buds get destroyed. Normal food stops tasting good. Your brain is the same way. After years of supernormal stimuli, normal rewards like the satisfaction of completing work, the pleasure of learning something new, the joy of making progress, these don't register anymore. Your dopamine system is fried. So your brain constantly seeks the next big hit, and productive work can't compete. This is why you can't focus. This is why everything feels boring. This is why you're always reaching for your phone. Your brain is literally addicted to artificial stimulation, and real work feels like withdrawal. But here's the hope. Here's the part that changes everything. Neuroplasticity. Your brain can be rewired. It's not permanent. The damage can be undone. But you have to understand how. Your brain creates neural pathways based on what you do repeatedly. Every time you choose scrolling over working, you strengthen the scrolling pathway. Every time you give in to procrastination, you make procrastination easier next time. You're literally training your brain to procrastinate. But the opposite is also true. Every time you choose action over avoidance, you strengthen the action pathway. Every time you push through the discomfort and start anyway, you make it easier next time. You're retraining your brain. The key is this. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to never procrastinate again. You just need to shift the ratio. Right now, maybe you choose procrastination 80% of the time and action 20% of the time. If you can shift that to 60-40, then 50-50, then 40-60, your brain will rewire itself. The action pathway will become the default. And what felt impossible will start feeling natural. This isn't motivational fluff. This is neuroscience. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. It will adapt to whatever you do most often. The question is, what pattern are you teaching it? The motivation myth destroyed. Now let me destroy the biggest lie you've ever been told about productivity. The lie that's been keeping you stuck for years. Here it is. Stop trying to get motivated. I know. Every productivity guru tells you the opposite. Find your why, get inspired, watch motivational videos, create a vision board, feel the feelings first, then take action. And that's exactly backwards. That's why it doesn't work. Here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. Motivation doesn't cause action. Action causes motivation. You have the entire equation reversed in your head. You think it goes like this. First, I need to feel motivated. Then I'll take action. Then I'll get results. But that's not how human psychology works. It actually goes like this. First, I take action, even small action. Then I start feeling motivated. Then I get results, which creates more motivation, which leads to more action. It's a loop. But you have to start with action, not motivation. Motivation is the result, not the cause. Think about it in your own life. When have you ever felt motivated to do something you've never started? You don't. You feel motivated after you're already in motion. You feel motivated to keep going to the gym once you've been going for 2 weeks. You feel motivated to work on your project once you've already made progress. You feel motivated to clean your house once you've cleaned the first room. Motivation follows action. Always. Not the other way around. So why does everyone get this wrong? Because we're looking at successful people and reverse engineering incorrectly. We see someone who's highly productive and assume they must be highly motivated. We think, if I could just feel what they feel, I could do what they do. But we're looking at the end of the process, not the beginning. They're motivated now because they've been taking action consistently. They started without motivation, just like you have to. Here's another truth that's going to save you years of frustration. Successful people don't feel like it either. Olympic athletes don't want to train at 5 a.m. Best-selling authors don't feel like writing most days. Entrepreneurs don't feel like making the difficult decisions. They just do it anyway. The feeling comes later. This is the secret. This is what separates people who achieve their goals from people who just dream about them. It's not motivation, it's action, despite the absence of motivation. Now let me give you the science behind why this works. There's a principle in neuroscience called activation energy. It's the amount of energy required to start a chemical reaction. The beginning requires the most energy. Once the reaction has started, it becomes self-sustaining. Your brain works the same way. Starting is the hardest part. It requires massive activation energy. But once you're in motion, even for just 5 minutes, your brain shifts gears. Resistance drops. Focus increases. Motivation appears. Not because you summoned it, but because action triggered it. This is why the first 5 seconds are everything. This is your window. Your brain has about 5 seconds to talk you out of taking action. 5 seconds where the limbic system can hijack your prefrontal cortex and redirect you to something easier. But if you move within those 5 seconds, if you physically start before your brain can stop you, you bypass the resistance. It's called the 5-second rule, popularized by Mel Robbins, but the neuroscience behind it is solid. The longer you wait, the more your brain generates reasons not to start. But if you count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then move your body, you interrupt the pattern. You create momentum before resistance can build. Let me explain this differently. Emotion doesn't create motion. Motion creates emotion. When you're sitting still, feeling unmotivated, your brain interprets that physical state as, we're not doing anything important right now. Everything is fine. No urgency. But when you stand up, when you walk to your desk, when you open your laptop, when you put your hands on the keyboard, your brain interprets those physical actions as, something is happening. We're engaged. Pay attention. Produce energy. Your body leads. Your mind follows. Not the other way around. This is why exercise improves mood. Not because you think yourself into happiness, but because the physical movement triggers neurochemical changes that create the emotion. Depression isn't cured by sitting and thinking positive thoughts. It's improved by moving your body, which changes your brain chemistry, which changes your thoughts. Same principle applies to procrastination. You can't think yourself into action. You have to act yourself into motivation. Now here's the framework that makes this practical. I call it the micro-commitment cascade. It works like this. You don't commit to finishing the task. You don't even commit to working for an hour. You commit to 5 seconds of action. Just 5 seconds. That's not intimidating. Anyone can do anything for 5 seconds. So you commit to opening the document. That's it. Just open it. 5 seconds. And here's what happens. Once you open it, your brain says, well, we're already here. Might as well read it for 5 minutes. So you commit to 5 minutes. Not the whole task. Just 5 minutes of engagement. And once you hit 5 minutes, your brain says, we're on a roll now. Let's keep going for 5 more minutes. This is the cascade. 5 seconds becomes 5 minutes, becomes 5 more minutes, becomes flow state. But you can't skip to the end. You have to start with the smallest possible action. The reason this works is because your brain's resistance is proportional to the size of the commitment. If you tell yourself, I'm going to work for 3 hours, your brain panics. That's huge. That's overwhelming. Resistance skyrockets. But if you tell yourself, I'm just going to open the file, your brain barely notices. No resistance. And once you're in motion, inertia takes over. This is Newton's first law applied to productivity. An object at rest stays at rest. An object in motion stays in motion. You're not trying to go from 0 to 60. You're trying to go from 0 to 1, and then from 1 to 2. Momentum builds itself. Here's the identity shift that makes this permanent. Stop thinking, I need to get motivated to take action. Start thinking, I'm the type of person who takes action without feeling ready. That's your new identity. People who take action before they feel motivated. That's who you're becoming. Because here's the final truth. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. It's influenced by sleep, stress, blood sugar, the weather. You can't build a life on something that unstable. But action? Action is a choice. Action is within your control. You can always choose to move for 5 seconds, regardless of how you feel. So stop waiting to feel like it. Stop consuming motivational content hoping it will make you ready. You'll never feel ready. Just start. The feeling will follow. The hidden energy system. Now that you understand action comes before motivation, let me show you why some days you can take action easily, and other days it feels impossible. This is about energy, not willpower. Time management is dead. It doesn't work. You can have all the time in the world, and if you don't have energy, you're not going to do anything meaningful with it. The real skill isn't managing your time, it's managing your energy. Here's the framework that changes everything. You don't have one energy tank, you have 4 separate batteries, and most procrastination happens when one of these batteries is empty, but you're trying to power through anyway. Battery number 1, your physical battery. This is glucose, sleep, and movement. Your brain runs on glucose. When your blood sugar crashes, your prefrontal cortex goes offline. Decision-making becomes impossible. Focus disappears. Procrastination becomes inevitable. Not because you're weak, but because you're literally running on fumes. Sleep is the same. When you're sleep-deprived, your limbic system becomes hyperactive and your prefrontal cortex becomes sluggish. This is why everything feels harder when you're tired. Your overprotective parent is in full control, and your ambitious teenager can barely function. You're not going to out-discipline biology. And movement. Your body was designed to move. When you sit still for hours, your brain interprets that as energy conservation mode. Everything slows down. But when you move, even for 5 minutes, blood flow increases. Oxygen reaches your brain, neurochemicals shift. Suddenly, tasks that felt impossible feel doable. Battery number 2, your emotional battery. This is stress, relationships, and emotional processing. If you're carrying unprocessed emotions, if you're in conflict with someone important, if you're anxious or grieving or angry, your brain is using massive amounts of energy just to regulate those feelings. There's nothing left for productive work. This is why you can't focus when you're in the middle of a relationship crisis. It's not that you're not trying hard enough. It's that your emotional battery is drained and your brain is prioritizing emotional survival over task completion. You need to process the emotion or resolve the conflict before you'll have energy for anything else. Battery number 3, your mental battery. This is decision fatigue and cognitive load. Your brain can only make so many decisions in a day before it starts making terrible ones or avoiding them altogether. Every choice depletes this battery. What to wear, what to eat, which task to do first, how to respond to that email. By the afternoon, your mental battery is often empty. This is why successful people wear the same clothes every day, why they have the same breakfast every morning, why they make all their important decisions in the first few hours of the day. They're not being boring. They're preserving their mental battery for things that actually matter. And cognitive load is related, but different. This is how much information your brain is trying to hold at once. Open browser tabs, unfinished tasks, unresponded messages, unresolved problems. Each one takes up RAM in your mental computer, and when your RAM is full, your brain can't process anything new. So you procrastinate, not because the task is hard, but because your mental system is overloaded. Battery number 4, your spiritual battery. This is meaning, purpose, and alignment. When you're doing work that feels meaningful, that aligns with your values, that connects to something bigger than yourself. Energy appears from nowhere. You can work for hours without feeling drained. But when you're doing work that feels pointless, that violates your values, that's purely external obligation, every minute feels like torture. This battery is the most overlooked. People try to power through meaningless work with discipline and willpower, and they wonder why they're constantly exhausted. It's not that you're lazy. It's that your spiritual battery is empty. You need work that feeds your soul, not just your bank account. Now here's the key insight. Most procrastination happens when one battery is empty, but we're trying to push through anyway. You're sleep deprived, trying to do creative work. Physical battery empty. Or you're emotionally overwhelmed, trying to make big decisions. Emotional battery empty. Or you've been making choices all day and now you're trying to start a complex project. Mental battery empty. You can't solve this with more discipline. You have to recharge the battery that's depleted. And different batteries require different charging methods. Physical battery? Sleep, eat, move. Simple but non-negotiable. Emotional battery? Process the feelings. Have the conversation. Journal. Cry. Whatever it takes to release the emotion. Mental battery? Reduce decisions. Lower cognitive load. Close the tabs. Finish the tasks. Clear the clutter. Spiritual battery? Connect to purpose. Remember why it matters. Realign with your values. The reason time management doesn't work is because it assumes all time is equal, but it's not. An hour with full batteries is worth 10 hours with empty batteries. You need to match tasks to energy, not tasks to time. This brings us to chronotypes. Not everyone has the same energy rhythm. There are 4 basic patterns, and knowing yours changes everything. Lions peak in the morning. They wake up ready to conquer. Their best thinking happens before noon. By evening, they're done. If you're a lion, do your hardest work first thing. Don't waste your peak hours on email. Bears follow the sun. They wake up with the sun, peak midday, wind down at sunset. Most people are bears. If that's you, front-load your challenging work in late morning when you're fully awake, but not yet tired. Wolves peak in the evening. Mornings are terrible for them. They don't fully wake up until noon, but from evening to midnight, they're on fire. If you're a wolf, stop trying to be a morning person. It's not going to happen. Schedule deep work for when your brain actually works. Dolphins are light sleepers with irregular patterns. They're often tired, but they have bursts of intense focus. If you're a dolphin, you need more flexibility. Build your schedule around your unpredictable energy peaks, not a rigid routine. The point is this: you have a natural rhythm. Fighting it is exhausting. Working with it is effortless. Stop trying to force yourself to work during your low-energy hours. Stop judging yourself for not being productive at times when your brain is offline. Start matching tasks to your energy. There's one more principle you need to understand: the 90-minute ultradian rhythm. Your brain naturally cycles through periods of high focus and low focus every 90 minutes. High focus for about 90 minutes, then your brain needs a break for about 20 minutes. This is biological. You can't override it. But most people try. They sit at their desk for 4 hours straight, wondering why they can't focus. You can't focus because your brain is screaming for a break. You're ignoring the natural cycle. And when you ignore it, your brain takes breaks anyway. That's what procrastination is. Your brain forcing the rest you won't give it permission to take. If you work with the 90-minute cycle instead of against it, everything changes. Work with full intensity for 90 minutes. Then actually take a break. Not a scroll your phone break. A real break. Walk. Stretch. Close your eyes. Let your brain rest. Then come back for another 90-minute cycle. You'll get more done in 3 90-minute cycles with real breaks than 8 hours of fighting your biology. This is the hidden energy system. 4 batteries. Match tasks to energy. Act 3. The execution system. The anti-procrastination architecture. Now we move from understanding to execution. Everything you've learned so far is useless if you don't have systems that actually work. And here's the truth about systems. Forget willpower. Design inevitability. Willpower is the weakest tool in your arsenal. It depletes. It fails under stress. It's unreliable. If your productivity depends on willpower, you're going to lose. Every time. The solution is architecture. You need to design your environment so that the right action is easier than the wrong action. You need to make procrastination harder and productivity easier, not through force, but through design. There are 3 fundamental laws of friction that govern human behavior. Master these, and you can engineer almost any behavior change you want. Law number 1, make good actions frictionless. This is the 20-second rule. If you can reduce the activation energy required to start a good behavior by just 20 seconds, you dramatically increase the likelihood you'll do it. 20 seconds. That's it. Example: you want to exercise in the morning. Don't leave your workout clothes in the closet. Sleep in them. Now the friction to exercise is almost zero. You wake up already dressed. The decision is already made. The action is inevitable. You want to read more. Don't keep your book on the shelf. Put it on your pillow. When you go to bed, you have to move the book. You're already holding it. You might as well read a page. Friction removed. You want to work on your project first thing. Don't start your day by opening email. Have your project file already open on your computer before you shut down the night before. When you sit down in the morning, it's right there. No decisions, no friction. Just start. Every second of friction is an opportunity for your brain to redirect you. Remove the friction. Remove the opportunity to fail. Law number 2. Make bad actions require effort. This is the 20-second delay. If you can add just 20 seconds of friction to a bad habit, you dramatically decrease the likelihood you'll do it. Example: you procrastinate by scrolling social media. Delete the apps from your phone, not just hiding them. Delete them. Now, if you want to scroll, you have to re-download the app, log in, wait for it to load. That's way more than 20 seconds. Most of the time, the urge will pass before you complete the process. You procrastinate by watching YouTube. Use a browser extension that blocks it during work hours, or log out of your account, or change your password to something random and write it down in another room. Add friction. Make the bad action annoying. You eat junk food when you're stressed. Don't keep it in the house. If you want chips, you have to get dressed, drive to the store, buy them, drive back. That's enough friction to make you reconsider. Sometimes you'll still do it, but often the hassle isn't worth it. The key is this: make the bad action as inconvenient as the good action is convenient. Law number 3. Make procrastination boring. This is the nuclear option. Remove the reward entirely. Your brain procrastinates because there's a more appealing option available. Your phone, your TV, your snacks, your bed. But what if those options didn't exist? What if the only choices were work or stare at the wall? Suddenly, work becomes the most interesting option available. This is why people are productive in coffee shops. There's nothing else to do. No bed to lie in, no TV to watch, just you, your work, and strangers. The environment is boring enough that work becomes appealing by comparison. Create boring environments for focused work. A room with nothing but a desk and a computer, no phone, no distractions, just work or boredom. Your brain will choose work. Now let's get specific about digital environment surgery. Your phone and computer are designed to distract you. Every app, every notification, every interface decision is engineered by some of the smartest behavioral psychologists in the world to capture your attention. You're not fighting yourself. You're fighting billion-dollar corporations who've optimized for addiction. You need to fight back with architecture. Phone setup that prevents doom scrolling. First, turn off all notifications except calls and texts from actual humans. Everything else is noise. Second, remove social media apps from your home screen. Put them in a folder, on the last page. Make them hard to reach. Third, enable grayscale mode during work hours. Color is stimulating. Grayscale is boring. You'll scroll less. Fourth, use screen time limits. Not as guilt trips, but as hard stops. When the app locks, it locks. No override. Computer workspace optimization. First, use separate browser profiles for work and play. Work profile has no bookmarks to entertainment sites. No saved passwords for social media. Clean slate. Second, use website blockers during deep work sessions. Not as suggestions. As hard blocks. You literally cannot access the sites. Third, close all tabs except the one you're working on. Each open tab is a cognitive load. Close them. Fourth, turn off desktop notifications. All of them. If it's important, they'll call. App blocking strategy done right. Don't block things forever. That creates resentment and rebellion. Block them during specific time windows when you need to focus. Morning deep work? Block everything distracting from 8 a.m. to noon. You can still access them later. This isn't about deprivation. It's about protection during vulnerable hours. Now let's talk about physical space psychology. Your environment is constantly sending signals to your brain about what behavior is appropriate here. You need to make those signals work for you, not against you. The commitment corner concept: designate one specific place for focused work. Not your bed, not your couch, not the kitchen table. One place. When you're in that place, you work. When you're not in that place, you don't. Your brain learns the association. Commitment corner equals work mode. Everywhere else equals rest mode. This makes starting easier because the location triggers the behavior. Trigger free zones. Remove everything from your workspace that could trigger procrastination. No snacks visible, no phone within reach, no books you'd rather be reading, no reminders of other projects. Clean and minimal. Every object is either supporting your work or it's gone. Visual cue stacking. Use your environment to remind you of your commitments. Put your running shoes by the door. Put your water bottle on your desk. Put your notebook open to today's page. These aren't just reminders. They're visual triggers that lower activation energy. You see them, you remember, you act. Here's the secret weapon that ties all of this together. Implementation intentions. This is the single most researched and validated technique in behavioral psychology for bridging the gap between intention and action. An implementation intention is a specific if-then plan, not a vague goal, a precise trigger and response. If X happens, then I will do Y. The specificity is what makes it work. Your brain doesn't have to think. It just has to execute the pre-decided plan. Example. Don't say, I'll work on my project tomorrow. Say, if it's 9 a.m. and I'm at my desk, then I will open the project file and write for 90 minutes. Now, your brain knows exactly what to do when the trigger occurs. No decision fatigue, no negotiation. The decision was already made. Example. Don't say, I'll exercise more. Say, if it's 7 a.m. on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, then I will put on my running shoes and run for 20 minutes. The if-then structure removes the need for motivation in the moment. The trigger happens. The behavior follows automatically. Example. Don't say, I'll stop scrolling so much. Say, if I feel the urge to check my phone during work hours, then I will take 3 deep breaths and return to my task. You're not relying on willpower. You're following a pre-programmed response. Research shows that implementation intentions double or triple the success rate of achieving goals. Not because they're magic, but because they remove the decision-making burden from your future self. Present you makes the decision. Future you just executes. Here's what you need to understand at a deep level. Environment beats willpower 100% of the time. Every single time. You can have the strongest will in the world, but if your environment is working against you, you will lose. But if you design your environment correctly, you don't need willpower at all. The right action becomes the path of least resistance. Stop trying to be stronger. Start being smarter. Design inevitability. The time architecture. Now that you understand environmental design, let's talk about how to structure your time in a way that makes procrastination nearly impossible. This isn't basic time management. This is time architecture. Most people's schedules are a lie. They write down what they hope to do, not what they're actually going to do. Then they wonder why they never follow through. The problem isn't discipline. The problem is bad architecture. Here's the system that actually works. I call it time stacking. There are 4 types of time blocks, and you need all 4. Miss one, and the whole system collapses. Block type 1, anchor blocks. These are your non-negotiable 90-minute deep work sessions. This is when you do the work that actually matters. The work that moves your life forward. The work that's important, but never urgent. You schedule these first, before anything else goes on your calendar. Not in the leftover time, in your best time, your peak energy hours. And you protect them like your life depends on them, because it does. Most people do the opposite. They fill their calendar with meetings, obligations, and reactive tasks, then hope to find time for important work. That's backwards. Important work gets the prime real estate. Everything else fits around it. How many anchor blocks do you need? At minimum, 1 per day. Ideally, 2 or 3. Each one should be 90 minutes because that's your natural focus cycle. Not 2 hours, not 4 hours. 90 minutes of full intensity, then a break. This is where your meaningful work happens. Block type 2, buffer blocks. These are for all the shallow work that has to get done but doesn't require deep focus. Email, admin tasks, phone calls, errands, meetings that could be emails. This stuff expands to fill whatever time you give it, so you need to contain it. Schedule 1 or 2 buffer blocks per day, 60 to 90 minutes total. That's it. Everything on this list has to fit in that window. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't happen, or it gets delegated, or it gets eliminated. This forces you to be ruthless about what actually matters. Most of what we do in buffer time is neither important nor urgent. It's just busy, but we feel productive doing it, so we keep doing it. Buffer blocks create constraints. Constraints create efficiency. Block type 3, recovery blocks. This is the most neglected and most important block. This is mandatory rest. Not rest if you have time, not rest if you've earned it. Mandatory rest, built into every single day. Your brain is not a machine. It cannot run at full capacity for 8 hours straight. It needs recovery. And if you don't schedule recovery, your brain will take it anyway in the form of procrastination, distraction, and inefficiency. You're resting either way. The question is whether you rest deliberately or accidentally. Schedule at least 2 recovery blocks per day, 20 to 30 minutes each. After your anchor blocks. This is when you walk, stretch, nap, meditate, stare at nothing. No screens, no productivity, just recovery. This isn't wasted time. This is the time that makes all the other time productive. Block type 4, flex blocks. These are for the unexpected, the crisis that comes up, the opportunity that appears, the thing you forgot about. If you schedule every minute of your day, you set yourself up to fail because life doesn't cooperate with perfect schedules. Flex blocks absorb chaos. They give you breathing room. They prevent one disruption from destroying your entire day. Schedule at least 1 flex block per day, 30 to 60 minutes, unassigned. If nothing unexpected happens, great. Use it for whatever you want. But most days, something will happen, and you'll have space for it without sacrificing your anchor blocks. This is the time stacking system. Anchor, buffer, recovery, flex. In that order. This is how you architect time that actually works with reality instead of against it. Now here's the counterintuitive move that changes everything. The anti-schedule. Block rest first. Most people schedule work first and rest if there's time left over. But there's never time left over. So they burn out. Then they wonder why they can't focus, why they can't motivate themselves, why they procrastinate constantly. It's because they're exhausted. The anti-schedule flips this. You schedule rest, sleep, exercise, meals, and recovery first. These are non-negotiable. Then you schedule work around them. What this does is force you to be realistic about how much you can actually accomplish. It prevents overcommitment. It ensures you're working from a place of energy, not depletion. This feels wrong at first. It feels like you're prioritizing rest over productivity. But here's the truth. Rest is productivity. A well-rested person working 4 focused hours accomplishes more than an exhausted person working 10 distracted hours. Every time. Now let's talk about temptation bundling on steroids. This is a technique where you pair something you need to do with something you want to do. But most people use it wrong. They pair it weakly. Like, I'll listen to music while I work. That's not temptation bundling. That's just having background noise. Real temptation bundling creates genuine restriction. You only allow yourself to experience the pleasure during the hard task, never outside of it. Example: you love a particular podcast. Make a rule. You can only listen to that podcast while doing a task you usually avoid. Going to the gym, cleaning the house, doing admin work. Now your brain starts associating the hard task with the pleasure. Eventually, you'll look forward to the hard task because it means you get the podcast. Example: you love going to a particular coffee shop. Make a rule. You can only go to that coffee shop to work on your most important project. Not to hang out, not to browse the internet. Only for deep work on that one project. Now the coffee shop becomes associated with productivity, and your brain will crave going there to work. The key is restriction. If you allow the pleasure outside the task, the association breaks. But if you lock the pleasure behind the task, your brain rewires itself to want the task. Now let's talk about the power hour. This is your daily non-negotiable. 1 hour, every single day, where you work on your most important long-term goal. Not your job, not your obligations, your goal. The thing that will change your life if you complete it. 1 hour. No exceptions, no negotiations, no excuses. Most people say they don't have an hour. They're lying to themselves. Everyone has an hour. The question is what you're using it for. Right now, you're probably using it to scroll, watch, or worry. Redirect it. 1 hour. Every day. Same time, same place. Implementation intention. If it's 6 a.m. and I'm awake, then I work on my goal for 1 hour. Do this for a year, and you'll have 365 hours of focused work on the thing that matters most. That's enough to write a book, build a business, transform your body, learn a new skill, change your life, but only if you protect the hour. Here's a technique that will 10 times your productivity. Reverse Parkinson's Law. Parkinson's Law states that work expands to fill the time available. If you give yourself a week to complete a task, it will take a week. If you give yourself a day, it will take a day. Most people use this as an excuse to procrastinate, but you can use it to your advantage. Give yourself less time than you think you need. Way less. Cut your estimates in half. If you think something will take 4 hours, give yourself 2. If you think it'll take 2 days, give yourself 1. You'll be shocked by how often you finish on time. Why does this work? Because with more time, you overthink, you perfect, you second guess. With less time, you execute. You make decisions quickly. You cut the non-essential. You focus on what actually matters. Time scarcity forces efficiency. Time abundance enables waste. Obviously, don't do this with complex projects that genuinely need deep thought. But for most tasks, most of the time, you're giving yourself way too much time. Tighten the constraint. Get it done faster. Finally, the weekly preview ritual. Not planning, previewing. This happens every Sunday evening or Monday morning. 30 minutes. You look at the week ahead and you preview it in your mind. You visualize walking through each day. You see yourself executing your anchor blocks. You see yourself handling the challenges. You see yourself completing the week successfully. This isn't woo-woo visualization. This is mental rehearsal. Athletes do this before every competition. Surgeons do this before every operation. You walk through the performance mentally before you do it physically. Your brain treats the mental rehearsal as a practice run. When the actual moment comes, it feels familiar. Resistance drops. During your preview, you also identify obstacles and pre-decide solutions. If this meeting runs long, then I'll protect my anchor block by leaving early. If I feel tired in the afternoon, then I'll take my recovery block seriously. If an emergency comes up, then I'll use my flex block. You're not hoping things will work out. You're pre-programming your responses. This is time architecture, not hoping you'll be productive. Designing inevitability. The Instant Action Toolkit. Now I'm going to give you 30 battle-tested tactics that you can use immediately. These are tools for when you need to take action right now, but your brain is fighting you. Pick the ones that resonate. Ignore the rest. Build your personal toolkit. Tactic 1. The 2-minute starter. You don't commit to finishing the task. You don't even commit to working for a full session. You commit to 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes of engagement. Anyone can do anything for 2 minutes. Start a timer. Work until it beeps. Then decide if you want to stop or continue. Most of the time you'll continue because starting was the only hard part. Tactic 2. The countdown launch. When you need to start something and your brain is resisting, count backwards from 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Then physically move. Stand up. Walk to your workspace. Open the file. The countdown interrupts your mental resistance pattern. The movement activates your system. This is Mel Robbins' technique, and it works because it's faster than your brain's ability to generate excuses. Tactic 3. The dopamine menu. Pre-decide your rewards before you start working. After 90 minutes of focused work, you get X. After completing this project, you get Y. Write them down. Make them specific. Make them things you genuinely want. Your brain works better when it knows the reward is coming. But here's the key. You only get the reward if you do the work. No work, no reward. Train your brain that pleasure follows action, not procrastination. Tactic 4. The procrastination decoy. Give yourself a worse alternative. Tell yourself, I can either work on this project or I can clean the bathroom. Suddenly the project doesn't seem so bad. Your brain is comparing two real options, not work versus infinite pleasant distractions. Often you'll choose the project just to avoid the worst task, but sometimes you'll clean the bathroom, and hey, that needed to happen anyway. Tactic 5. The public commitment bomb. Tell someone what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. Be specific. Make it someone whose opinion you care about. Now you have social pressure. Now your reputation is on the line. Your brain hates the idea of looking like a failure in front of others, so it will help you follow through. This isn't about shame. It's about leveraging social motivation. Tactic 6. The temptation bundling matrix. This is the advanced version. Create a list of tasks you avoid and a list of pleasures you enjoy. Then pair them systematically. Hard task A only happens with pleasure B. Hard task C only happens with pleasure D. You're building conditioned associations. Eventually, your brain will start craving the hard tasks because they're linked to pleasures. Tactic 7. The energy audit. For 1 week, track your energy levels every hour. Rate yourself 1 to 10. Note what you're doing, what you ate, how you slept, how you feel. At the end of the week, look for patterns. When are you naturally high energy? When do you crash? What activities drain you? What activities energize you? Use this data to redesign your schedule. Stop fighting your biology. Work with it. Tactic 8. The fear-setting exercise. This is Tim Ferriss's method. When you're paralyzed by fear, write down the worst-case scenario in detail. What's the absolute worst that could happen if you try and fail? Then write down how you would recover from that worst case. Then write down the cost of inaction. What happens if you don't try? Usually you'll realize the worst case isn't that bad and you'd survive it. But the cost of not trying is enormous. This breaks the paralysis. Tactic 9. The done list. Forget the to-do list for a moment. At the end of each day, write down everything you actually accomplished. Not what you plan to do, what you did. This trains your brain to notice progress instead of focusing on what's left undone. You'll realize you're doing more than you think. This builds momentum and confidence. Tactic 10. The Pomodoro Evolution. The classic Pomodoro is 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of rest. But that's not optimal for everyone. Experiment with different ratios. Try 52 minutes of work, 17 minutes of rest. Try 90 minutes of work, 20 minutes of rest. Try 45 minutes of work, 15 minutes of rest. Find the rhythm that matches your natural focus cycle. The principle is the same: intense focus, then real rest. But the timing should fit you. Tactic 11. The Accountability Triad. Find 3 people who are also working on meaningful goals. Form a group. Every week, you each commit to 3 specific actions. You report your results to each other. No judgment, just accountability. Knowing someone is going to ask, "Did you do it?" That's often enough to push you over the resistance threshold. Tactic 12. The Streak Tracker. Put a calendar on your wall. Every day you work on your goal, you put an X on that day. Your only job is to not break the chain. This is Jerry Seinfeld's technique. The visual reminder of your streak becomes motivating. You don't want to break it. After 10 days, then 20 days, then 30 days, the streak itself becomes valuable. You'll work just to maintain it. Tactic 13. The Anti-Planner. Stop planning the entire project. Just plan the first step, the tiniest possible action that moves you forward. Write it down. Do it. Then plan the next step. This prevents overwhelm. Big projects feel impossible, but one small step feels doable. String together enough small steps, and you'll complete the impossible project without ever feeling overwhelmed. Tactic 14. The Body Double Effect. Work alongside someone, even virtually. You don't have to talk. You don't have to collaborate. Just share space. Zoom call with video on, both working silently. Or go to a library or coffee shop. The presence of another person working creates subtle social pressure to stay focused. Your brain mirrors their focus. This is incredibly powerful for people who struggle with solo work. Tactic 15. The Phone Funeral. When you need to focus, don't just put your phone in another room. Lock it in a drawer, or give it to someone else, or put it in your car. Create serious physical barriers. Make retrieving it genuinely annoying. The further away it is, the less you'll check it. Out of sight isn't enough. It needs to be out of reach. Tactic 16. The Music Ritual. Choose one specific song or playlist that you only listen to when you're working on your important task. Never listen to it outside of that context. Over time, your brain will associate that music with focus. When the music starts, your brain shifts into work mode automatically. The music becomes a trigger that eliminates the need for willpower. Tactic 17. The Uniform Principle. Wear specific clothes when you work. Not pajamas, not lounge clothes, actual work clothes. Your brain associates clothing with identity and behavior. When you put on the work uniform, you step into work identity. This is especially important for people working from home who've blurred the boundaries between rest and work. Tactic 18. The Location Hack. Different places for different work. Creative work happens at the coffee shop. Admin work happens at your desk. Hard conversations happen in meeting rooms. Strategic thinking happens on walks. Never do multiple types of work in the same location. Your brain learns what behavior belongs where. Each location becomes a trigger for that specific type of work. Tactic 19. The Deadline Multiplier. Instead of one big deadline far away, create multiple micro-deadlines close together. Today, outline. Tomorrow, first draft of Section 1. Day 3, first draft of Section 2. Every day, something is due. This creates constant urgency without the panic of one massive deadline. It also prevents the last-minute rush that produces terrible work. Tactic 20. The Reward Delay. Don't check your phone until after the first anchor block. Don't have coffee until after you've worked for 30 minutes. Don't shower until after you've exercised. Use the things you want as rewards for doing the things you need. You're training your brain that pleasure follows action. Reverse the order, and you train your brain that pleasure comes first, and action never happens. Tactic 21. The morning pages. Before you start your day, before you check anything, write 3 pages by hand. Stream of consciousness. Whatever is in your head. This dumps all the mental clutter, all the anxiety, all the noise onto paper. Your brain can relax because it knows the thoughts are captured. Then you can work with a clear mind. This is Julia Cameron's technique, and it's transformative for overthinkers. Tactic 22. The evening review. End each day with 5 minutes of reflection. What did I accomplish? What did I learn? What will I do tomorrow? This creates closure. Your brain can let go of the day because it knows nothing is lost. You captured it. This improves sleep and prevents the mental churn that keeps you up at night. Tactic 23. The success preload. Before you start a task, close your eyes for 30 seconds. Visualize yourself completing it successfully. See yourself focused, capable, in flow. Feel the satisfaction of finishing. This primes your brain for success. It reduces resistance because your brain has already experienced a version of the task going well. Tactic 24. The failure pre-mortem. Before starting a big project, imagine it's 6 months from now and you failed completely. Write down all the reasons why you failed. What went wrong? What did you neglect? What obstacles did you ignore? Now you have a list of things to watch out for. You can prevent the failure before it happens. Tactic 25. The energy matching. Never do creative work when you're low energy. Never do admin work when you're high energy. Never make big decisions when you're depleted. Match the task to your energy level. High energy, deep work and creation. Medium energy, learning and problem solving. Low energy, admin and mindless tasks. Stop wasting your best energy on trivial tasks. Tactic 26. The decision preload. Every evening, decide everything you can about tomorrow. What you'll wear, what you'll eat, what tasks you'll do, what order you'll do them. Your morning self wakes up with no decisions to make, just execution. This preserves your mental battery for what matters. Tactic 27. The commitment device. Make it painful to quit. Prepay for a course, sign a contract with penalty clauses. Tell everyone you're doing this so quitting means public embarrassment. Put money on the line through apps like BeMinder. When the cost of quitting exceeds the discomfort of continuing, you continue. Tactic 28. The sunk cost hack. Usually sunk cost fallacy is bad, but you can use it for good. Invest heavily in your goal up front. Buy the expensive equipment, hire the coach, pay for the workshop. Now your brain says, we already invested all this, we can't quit now. You've tricked yourself into commitment. Tactic 29. The social proof feed. Curate your social media to only show people doing the thing you want to do. Unfollow everyone else. When you scroll, you see runners if you want to run. You see writers if you want to write. You see entrepreneurs if you want to build. Your brain sees this as normal behavior. It mirrors it. Tactic 30. The identity statement. Write one sentence. I am someone who... Fill in the blank with the identity you're building. I am someone who takes action before feeling ready. I am someone who finishes what I start. I am someone who keeps commitments to myself. Read it every morning. Your behavior follows your identity. Change the identity, change the behavior. These are your tools. You don't need all 30. Pick 5 that resonate. Test them for a week. Keep the ones that work. Replace the ones that don't. Build your personal anti-procrastination toolkit. These aren't theories, these are weapons. Use them. Act 4. The inner game. The perfectionism prison break. Now we go deeper. Because all the systems and tactics in the world won't save you if you're still fighting internal battles. And the biggest internal battle most people face is perfectionism. Let me be clear about something. Perfectionism is not about high standards. It's not about excellence. It's not about caring about quality. Those are good things. Perfectionism is about fear, specifically the fear of not being enough. Let me show you where perfectionism really comes from. It usually starts in childhood. Maybe you learned that your worth was tied to your achievements, that love was conditional on performance, that mistakes meant disappointment, that being perfect was the only way to be safe. So you internalized a belief. The belief that if you're not perfect, you're worthless. If you make a mistake, you're a failure. If someone criticizes your work, they're criticizing your entire existence. This isn't about wanting to do good work. This is about survival. Your nervous system believes that imperfection equals danger. And here's what happens. You start a project. You have this vision of what it should be. Perfect, brilliant, flawless. But when you actually create it, it's not perfect. It's messy. It's imperfect. It's human. And that gap between the vision and the reality is so painful that you'd rather not create at all. Because creating means confronting your own inadequacy. Not creating means your potential remains intact. This is the perfectionism trap. You're not protecting your work from being imperfect. You're protecting your ego from being exposed. Here's the brutal truth you need to hear. Everything you create will be imperfect. Always. There is no perfect. Perfect is an illusion, a moving target, a standard that exists only in your imagination. Even the greatest works of art, the most important books, the most successful businesses, they're all imperfect. They're all flawed. And they exist anyway. The goal is not perfection. The goal is existence. Better to create something imperfect that exists than something perfect that never gets made. Now let me give you a framework that will change how you think about this. I call it perfectly imperfect. It has 3 core principles. Principle 1, version 1.0 mentality. Everything you create is version 1.0. Not the final version, not the ultimate version, version 1.0. Which means it's meant to be iterated on. It's meant to be improved. It's meant to be a starting point, not an ending point. When you frame your work as version 1.0, the pressure to be perfect disappears. Of course it's not perfect. It's version 1.0. Perfect would be version 87.3 after years of refinement. Principle 2, the B+ philosophy. Intentionally aim for B+ work on things that don't matter. Not everything deserves your A+ effort. Most things don't. Save your perfectionism for the few things that genuinely matter. For everything else, B+ is not only acceptable, it's strategic. B+ work gets done. A plus work on unimportant things wastes time you could be spending on what actually matters. The question is, what deserves your A+ effort? Maybe 10% of what you do. Everything else? B+ or lower. And that's not settling. That's wisdom. Principle 3. The progress portfolio. Stop measuring yourself against perfection. Start measuring yourself against your past self. Are you better than you were last month? Last year? That's the only comparison that matters. Track your improvement, not your distance from some imaginary ideal. Create a literal portfolio of your progress. Your first attempt, your 10th attempt, your 100th attempt. Look at how far you've come. Your current work might not be perfect, but it's better than it was. That's success. Now here's the permission slip you've been waiting for. I'm going to give you permission to create bad work. Not ironically, not as a stepping stone. Actually bad work. The shitty first draft. The ugly prototype. The embarrassing attempt. Because here's what perfectionism doesn't want you to know. Bad work is better than no work. Bad work can be improved. No work is just absence. Bad work teaches you what doesn't work so you can figure out what does. No work teaches you nothing except how to avoid. Anne Lamott wrote about this in her book, Bird by Bird. She calls it the shitty first draft. Every writer Even the great ones starts with a shitty first draft. They give themselves permission to write garbage, because you can edit garbage. You can't edit a blank page. This applies to everything. Bad paintings can be painted over. Bad businesses can be pivoted. Bad code can be refactored. Bad first attempts can be second attempts. The only thing that can't be fixed is the thing that never gets made. So here's your new mantra. Done badly today beats perfect never. Say it again. Done badly today beats perfect never. This is not about lowering your standards. This is about raising your courage. Let me tell you about an artist I know. She was paralyzed for years by perfectionism. She had this vision for her paintings, these incredible museum-quality pieces. But every time she started one, it didn't match the vision. So she'd start over, and start over, and start over. She had dozens of abandoned canvases. Nothing finished, nothing shared, nothing sold. Then she made a decision. She would create and publish one piece of art every single day for a year. It didn't have to be good. It just had to be done. So she did. Some days she created beautiful work. Some days she created terrible work. But every day she created and shared. Here's what happened. First, she got better. Dramatically better. Because she was practicing every day instead of theorizing about perfect execution. Second, people started following her. Not for perfection, but for authenticity. For the journey. For the vulnerability of watching someone create publicly. Third, she started selling work. Even the pieces she thought were mediocre, someone else loved. But the biggest change was internal. She stopped being afraid. She stopped needing perfection. She learned that she could create imperfect work and survive. Actually, thrive. Her worth wasn't tied to the quality of each individual piece. Her worth was inherent. The work was just work. That's the prison break. Separating your worth from your work. You are not your output. You are valuable regardless of what you create. The work can be imperfect. You're still enough. Here's the final reframe that brings this all together. Perfectionism masquerades as self-respect, but it's actually self-abuse. You think you're holding yourself to high standards, but really, you're punishing yourself for being human. You wouldn't talk to a friend the way you talk to yourself. You wouldn't expect from a friend what you expect from yourself. You're not being excellent, you're being cruel. What if instead of perfection, you aimed for compassionate excellence? What if you held high standards while also accepting that you're learning, growing, imperfect? What if you could critique your work without condemning yourself? What if getting better was more important than being the best? This is the prison break. Not abandoning quality. Abandoning the belief that your worth depends on it. You're enough. Right now. Before you achieve anything else. Before you create anything perfect. You're already enough. The work is just what you do. It's not who you are. The fear alchemist. Let's talk about fear. Because underneath all procrastination, underneath all perfectionism, underneath all self-sabotage, there's fear. And until you learn to transform fear into fuel, you'll always be fighting yourself. There are 4 core fears that drive procrastination. Most people have all 4 to varying degrees. The question isn't whether you have these fears. The question is, which one is driving your specific procrastination right now? Fear number 1. Fear of failure. What if I'm not good enough? What if I try and it doesn't work? What if I invest all this time and energy and end up with nothing? What if I prove to myself and everyone else that I'm a fraud? This fear keeps you frozen. Because if you never try, you never fail. Your potential remains intact. You can always say, I could have done it if I really tried. But if you try and fail, that excuse is gone. So you don't try. You procrastinate. You protect yourself from the definitive proof of inadequacy. Fear number 2. Fear of success. This one is counterintuitive. Why would you be afraid of success? But here's what success means. Responsibility, visibility, expectation, pressure to maintain it. If you succeed at this level, people will expect you to succeed at the next level. If you make it here, you might lose your excuses for not making it there. Success is actually terrifying because it removes all the safety of obscurity. Plus, success changes your identity. And identity change feels like death. Who will you be if you're no longer the person struggling? Who will you be if you're the person who achieved the goal? That unknown version of yourself is scarier than the known version you have now. Fear number 3. Fear of judgment. What will they think? What if they criticize my work? What if they laugh? What if they see my flaws? What if they reject me? Human beings are social creatures. We need belonging. And putting yourself out there, creating publicly, expressing your ideas, it all risks rejection. Your brain interprets social rejection as life-threatening, so it keeps you hidden, it keeps you safe, it keeps you procrastinating. Fear number 4. Fear of identity loss. This is the deepest one. If I achieve this goal, I'm no longer the person I was. I'm someone new. And the person I was, with all their limitations and excuses and familiar patterns, they feel safe. They're known. The new person is unknown, and unknown feels like annihilation. This is why people self-sabotage right before breakthrough, not because they're weak, because their identity is threatened. Their brain is trying to keep them as the person they know themselves to be. Now here's what you need to understand. These fears are not going away. You can't eliminate them. You can't think them away. You can't meditate them into non-existence. They're part of being human. What you can do is change your relationship with them. You can alchemize them. Turn fear from an enemy into fuel. Here's how. First, you name the fear. You get specific. Not, I'm afraid, but I'm afraid that if I launch this project and it fails, I'll have wasted 2 years and proven I don't have what it takes. The specificity is critical. Vague fear is overwhelming. Specific fear can be addressed. Second, you expose yourself to the fear gradually. This is called the exposure ladder. You don't dive into the deep end. You start with the smallest possible exposure to what you're afraid of. If you're afraid of judgment, you don't start by posting your work to 1 million people. You start by showing 1 trusted friend, then 5 friends, then strangers on a small forum, then a larger audience. You build tolerance slowly. Each time you expose yourself and survive, your brain updates its threat assessment. It learns, this thing I'm afraid of, it's not actually dangerous. I can handle it. The fear decreases not through avoidance, but through repeated safe exposure. Third, you reframe failure as data. This is the growth mindset taken seriously. Failure is not evidence of your inadequacy. Failure is feedback. It tells you what doesn't work, so you can try something that might work better. Scientists don't see failed experiments as personal failures. They see them as information. You need to do the same. Every attempt that doesn't produce the result you wanted is teaching you something. What you need to learn, what you need to change, what assumptions were wrong. That's not failure. That's the scientific method applied to your life. Fourth, you do the worst-case scenario map. This is the fear-setting exercise. You write down in detail what the absolute worst outcome would be. Then you write down how you would recover from it. Then you write down the most likely outcome. Then you write down the cost of inaction. What you'll discover is this. The worst case is survivable. You'd be okay. You'd figure it out. The most likely outcome is way better than the worst case. And the cost of not trying is enormous. You'll waste years. You'll live with regret. You'll wonder what if. When you map it out clearly, the math changes. The risk of trying becomes smaller than the risk of not trying. The fear loses its power. Fifth, you understand the courage equation. Most people think courage means not being afraid. That's not courage. That's just absence of fear. Courage is being afraid and acting anyway. Courage is feeling the fear fully and doing the thing in spite of it. You don't wait for fear to go away before you act. You act while the fear is still present. And here's what happens. Every time you act in the presence of fear, You prove to yourself that fear is not the boss. You are. Fear is just a feeling, a sensation, information. It doesn't control you unless you let it. Sixth, you flip the script. Instead of seeing fear as a stop sign, you see it as a compass. Fear points toward growth. If you're not afraid, you're not challenging yourself. If you're not afraid, you're staying in your comfort zone. So when you feel fear, you don't run from it. You lean into it. You say, "This fear means I'm on the edge of something important. This fear means I'm about to grow." Let me tell you about an entrepreneur I worked with. He had an idea for a business, a good idea. He worked on it in secret for 2 years, perfecting it, planning it, but never launching. Every time he got close, he'd find a reason to delay. It's not ready. The market's not right. I need more preparation. But the real reason was fear. All 4 fears. Fear of failure. What if it flops? Fear of success. What if it takes off and I can't handle it? Fear of judgment. What if people think it's stupid? Fear of identity loss. What if I'm no longer the person with the brilliant idea, but the person with the failed business? So we did the fear work. We named each fear specifically. We did the worst-case scenario map. The worst case was, he launches, nobody buys, he's out the money he invested, he feels embarrassed. How would he recover? He'd get feedback, pivot, try again, or he'd go back to his job. Either way, he'd survive. The most likely case was, he launches, some people buy, he learns what works and what doesn't, he iterates. The cost of not trying was, he stays stuck forever, watching other people launch similar ideas, living with regret for the rest of his life. When he saw it mapped out, the choice was obvious. The risk of trying was smaller than the risk of not trying, so he launched. And you know what happened? It didn't fail catastrophically. It didn't succeed spectacularly. It was somewhere in the middle. He got customers. He got feedback. He iterated. 2 years later, it's a thriving business. But here's the real transformation. He's no longer afraid of trying things. He learned that he can survive failure. He can handle judgment. He can adapt to success. The fear still comes up with each new challenge, but it doesn't stop him anymore. He's learned to act with fear present. That's alchemy, turning fear from a blocker into a signal, from an enemy into information, from a reason to stop into a reason to keep going. Here's the final piece. You need to understand that confidence doesn't come before action. Confidence comes from action. You don't feel confident and then take the leap. You take the leap, and then you feel confident because you survived. Confidence is the result of evidence. Evidence that you can handle hard things. Evidence that you can face fear and not be destroyed by it. Every time you act despite fear, you build evidence. And evidence builds confidence. And confidence makes the next action easier. It's a virtuous cycle. But you have to start the cycle by acting without confidence. By acting with fear fully present. This is the alchemy. Fear doesn't go away, but it stops controlling you. It becomes fuel instead of a brake. It becomes information instead of a threat. It becomes a signal that you're growing instead of a reason to stay small. Transform your fear. Don't eliminate it. Use it. The self-compassion revolution. Now we get to the most overlooked and most powerful element of overcoming procrastination. Self-compassion. And I know what you're thinking. That sounds soft. That sounds like making excuses. That sounds like letting yourself off the hook. And you're wrong. Self-compassion is not self-indulgence. It's not lowering standards. It's not giving yourself permission to quit. Self-compassion is what makes lasting change possible. And I can prove it. Here's the research. Studies show that self-criticism makes procrastination worse. When you beat yourself up for procrastinating, you feel terrible. When you feel terrible, your emotional battery depletes. When your emotional battery is empty, your brain seeks immediate relief. And what provides immediate relief? Procrastination. You're creating the exact cycle you're trying to break. Self-compassion, on the other hand, increases motivation. Counterintuitive, but true. When you treat yourself with kindness after a setback, you recover faster. You learn from the experience instead of spiraling in shame. You're more likely to try again, because trying doesn't mean risking self-condemnation. Let me break down what self-compassion actually means. It has 3 components, developed by researcher Kristin Neff. Component 1. Self-kindness over self-judgment. When you mess up, when you procrastinate, when you fall short, you speak to yourself the way you'd speak to a good friend. Not harsh, not critical, not cruel, kind, gentle, understanding. You say, "This is hard, you're struggling. That's okay. You're still worthy of kindness." Most people talk to themselves in ways they would never talk to another human. You call yourself lazy, weak, pathetic, a failure. You say things like, "What's wrong with you? Why can't you just do it? Everyone else can handle this. You're the problem." If you talk to a friend that way, they'd stop being your friend. But you talk to yourself that way constantly. And then you wonder why you can't motivate yourself. You can't hate yourself into improvement. You can't shame yourself into success. Cruelty doesn't create change. It creates resistance, resentment, and more procrastination. Self-kindness means treating yourself like someone you care about, someone who's trying their best even when their best isn't perfect, someone who deserves support, not punishment. Component 2. Common humanity over isolation. When you fail or struggle, you tend to think, "I'm the only one who can't figure this out. Everyone else has it together. I'm uniquely broken." This is isolation thinking, and it's a lie. Everyone struggles. Everyone procrastinates. Everyone has moments of weakness, doubt, and failure. You are not uniquely flawed. You are having a human experience. The same experience billions of other people have had and will have. When you recognize this, when you see your struggle as part of the shared human condition, the shame loosens. You're not alone. You're not broken. You're just human. And humans struggle. That's normal. That's okay. Component 3. Mindfulness over over-identification. When you procrastinate, you tend to either ignore it completely or become consumed by it. Neither is helpful. Mindfulness means observing the experience without judgment and without getting lost in it. You notice, "I'm procrastinating right now. I'm feeling resistance. I'm avoiding this task." You don't ignore it. You don't spiral into shame about it. You just notice it, like a scientist observing data. Interesting. This is what's happening. No drama, no self-attack, just awareness. This creates space. Space between the feeling and the action. Space between the thought and the identity. You're not a procrastinator. You're a person who is currently procrastinating. That's a behavior, not a permanent state. And behaviors can change. Now let me give you a practice that brings all 3 components together. The self-compassion letter. When you've procrastinated, when you've let yourself down, when you're disappointed in yourself, write yourself a letter. But write it from the perspective of a compassionate friend. Someone who loves you and wants the best for you. What would they say? Probably something like, "I know you're struggling right now. I know this is hard. I know you're disappointed in yourself. But I want you to know that you're not broken. You're human. Everyone struggles with this. And I believe in you. I believe you can figure this out. I believe you're capable of growth. And I'm here for you, no matter what." Read that letter when you're in the shame spiral. Let it be the voice you hear instead of the critical voice. Over time, that compassionate voice becomes internalized. It becomes how you actually talk to yourself. Here's why this matters for procrastination specifically. Procrastination creates a shame spiral. You procrastinate. You feel guilty. You beat yourself up. You feel worse. You seek relief through more procrastination. The shame is the fuel that keeps the cycle going. Self-compassion breaks the cycle. You procrastinate. You notice it with kindness. You understand that you're struggling and that's okay. You don't feel crushed by shame. You have energy to actually address the problem. You try again without the weight of self-condemnation. This is the reset ritual. When you slip up, when you fall back into old patterns, you don't punish yourself. You reset with compassion. You acknowledge what happened. You get curious about why. You recommit without judgment. You move forward. The reset ritual has 4 steps. Step 1, pause. Stop the shame spiral before it starts. Just pause. Breathe. Step 2, acknowledge. Yes, I procrastinated. Yes, I didn't follow through. That happened. Step 3, compassion. This is hard. I'm learning. I'm human. I deserve kindness. Step 4, recommit. What's one small action I can take right now to move forward? No drama, no self-attack, just reset and continue. This is how you build resilience, not by never falling, by falling and getting back up quickly without making it mean something terrible about yourself. Let me tell you what changes when you practice self-compassion consistently. First, your recovery time from setbacks shrinks dramatically. Instead of spiraling for days or weeks, you reset in hours or minutes. Second, you become willing to try harder things because failure isn't catastrophic anymore. You know you'll treat yourself kindly either way. Third, you actually enjoy the process more because you're not constantly at war with yourself. But the biggest change is this. You start to genuinely like yourself, not conditional on achievement, not dependent on perfection, just baseline unconditional self-regard. And when you like yourself, when you're on your own team, procrastination loses most of its power. Because here's the secret. A lot of procrastination is self-punishment, unconscious self-sabotage because deep down, you don't believe you deserve success or happiness or the life you want. So you keep yourself stuck as a way of confirming that belief. Self-compassion dismantles that belief. You start to believe you deserve good things. You start to believe you're worthy of the effort. You start to believe that you're worth fighting for. And when you believe that, you stop fighting against yourself. This is the revolution, not achieving more through cruelty, but achieving more through kindness, not beating yourself into submission, but supporting yourself into growth, not hating the person you are, but loving yourself into becoming who you want to be. You are not the enemy. You're the person you're learning to support. Treat yourself that way, and everything changes. Act 5, Advanced Mastery. The Flow State Formula. Now we move into advanced territory. Everything we've covered so far gets you to consistent action. But there's another level. The level where work stops feeling like work, where time disappears, where you're so absorbed that resistance doesn't even occur to you. This is flow state, and you can learn to trigger it deliberately. First, let's define what flow actually is. Flow is a state of complete absorption in an activity. You're fully present. Your sense of self disappears. Time distorts. You're performing at your peak without effort. Athletes call it being in the zone. Artists call it inspiration. Programmers call it deep focus. It's all the same neurological state. Flow has 8 characteristics: complete concentration on the task, clarity of goals and immediate feedback, transformation of time, either speeding up or slowing down. The experience is intrinsically rewarding, effortlessness and ease, a balance between challenge and skill. Actions and awareness merge. You're not thinking about what to do, you're just doing it. And a feeling of control over the task. This isn't mystical. This is a specific neurological state that can be measured and induced. When you're in flow, your prefrontal cortex actually quiets down. This is called transient hypofrontality. The part of your brain that judges, that criticizes, that generates self-consciousness, it goes offline. What remains is pure performance. Your brain also releases a cascade of neurochemicals. Norepinephrine for focus, dopamine for motivation and pattern recognition, endorphins for pain relief, anandamide for lateral thinking, serotonin for well-being. This cocktail makes you feel amazing and perform at levels that seem impossible in normal states. Now here's what most people don't understand about flow. It's not random. It's not something that just happens to lucky people. It follows a predictable cycle. And if you understand the cycle, you can navigate it deliberately. The flow cycle has 4 stages. Stage 1 is struggle. This is when you're learning something new or tackling a difficult problem. It's hard. It's frustrating. Your brain is working overtime trying to load information and patterns. This stage feels terrible. Most people quit here. They think, if it's this hard, I must not be good at it. Wrong. Struggle is a necessary precondition for flow. You have to load your brain with the challenge before it can shift into flow. Stage 2 is release. After struggle, you have to step away. You have to stop thinking about the problem consciously. Go for a walk, take a shower, sleep. Do something completely different. Your unconscious mind continues processing in the background. This is when insights happen. This is when solutions appear. But you can't skip struggle and go straight to release. The release phase only works if you've done the struggle work first. Stage 3 is flow. After release, when you return to the task, flow can emerge. Suddenly, what was impossible feels effortless. You're in the zone. Everything clicks. This is the peak performance state. This is where the magic happens. But it's temporary. You can't stay in flow forever. Eventually, your neurochemistry depletes, your focus fades, and flow ends. Stage 4 is recovery. After flow, you're exhausted. Even though flow feels effortless in the moment, it's metabolically expensive. Your brain burned through massive amounts of glucose and neurochemicals. You need to recover. Rest, eat, sleep, do low-intensity activities. If you don't recover properly, you can't access flow again. Recovery is not optional. It's part of the cycle. Understanding this cycle changes everything. You stop trying to force flow. You stop beating yourself up when you're in struggle. You recognize struggle as the first stage, not a sign of failure. You deliberately build in release periods instead of grinding through endlessly. You honor recovery instead of trying to maintain peak performance 24/7. Now let's talk about how to trigger flow deliberately. There are specific conditions that make flow more likely. Not guaranteed, but significantly more probable. Trigger 1. Clear goals. You need to know exactly what you're trying to accomplish in this session. Not vague, specific. Not, work on my project. But, write 500 words of Chapter 3. Not, practice piano. But, master this specific passage. Clarity eliminates decision fatigue and allows your brain to focus entirely on execution. Trigger 2. Immediate feedback. You need to know instantly whether what you're doing is working. This is why video games are so good at inducing flow. Every action produces immediate visible results. You need to structure your work the same way. If you're writing, you see the words appear. If you're coding, you run the program and see if it works. If you're exercising, you feel the muscle engagement. Immediate feedback keeps you locked in the present moment. Trigger 3. Challenge skill balance. This is the most important trigger. The task needs to be about 4% harder than your current skill level. Not too easy. That's boring. Not too hard. That's overwhelming. Right at the edge of your capability. This is called the flow channel. Too far in either direction, and flow becomes impossible. Most people get this wrong. They either choose tasks that are way too hard because they want to prove themselves, or way too easy because they want to feel competent. Both kill flow. You need that 4% stretch. Hard enough to demand full attention, easy enough that success is possible. Trigger 4. Deep embodiment. You need to eliminate all distractions, not most distractions, all distractions. Phone off. Notifications silenced. Door closed. Single tasking only. Your brain cannot enter flow if it's constantly interrupted. Every time you switch attention, you reset the flow process. You need unbroken focus for at least 90 minutes to reach deep flow. Trigger 5. Rich environment. Flow is more likely in stimulating environments, not chaotic. Rich complexity, novelty, unpredictability. This is why people flow more easily in nature, in new cities, in challenging situations. The richness captures attention and prevents mind wandering. If your environment is too sterile or too familiar, your brain disengages. Trigger 6. Risk and consequences. When something matters, when there are real stakes, flow becomes more accessible. This doesn't mean life or death, but it means genuine consequences for failure. Public commitments, money on the line, deadlines that matter, audiences watching. Risk focuses attention like nothing else. Now let me connect this to deep work, the concept from Cal Newport. Deep work is professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive capabilities to their limit. Flow is the optimal state for deep work. When you combine the structure of deep work protocols with the understanding of flow triggers, you create conditions for extraordinary productivity. The deep work protocol looks like this. First, schedule deep work blocks in advance. Same time, same place, every day if possible. Your brain learns the pattern. Second, ritualize the start. Same routine before every session. Make coffee, set timer, close apps, put on specific music. The ritual signals to your brain, we're entering deep work mode now. Third, eliminate all possible distractions before you start. Don't rely on willpower during the session. Remove the option to be distracted. Fourth, work in 90-minute blocks. This matches your ultradian rhythm and the average time to reach flow. Fifth, take real breaks between blocks. 20 minutes minimum. Move your body. Change your environment. Let your brain reset. Sixth, track your deep work hours. Aim for 4 hours of deep work per day maximum. More than that, and quality degrades. Here's what happens when you combine flow triggers with deep work protocols. You spend less time working and accomplish more. You enjoy the work more because you're in flow. You improve faster because you're practicing at the edge of your capability. You feel more fulfilled because you're regularly accessing peak states. Let me give you environmental triggers specific to flow. Temperature matters. Slightly cool environments enhance focus. Around 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Too warm, and you get sluggish. Lighting matters. Natural light is best. Blue light for focus in the morning. Warmer light for creative work. Harsh fluorescent lighting kills flow. Sound matters. Some people flow better in silence. Some need white noise. Some need music without lyrics. Some need the ambient noise of a coffee shop. Experiment and find what works for you. But whatever you choose, keep it consistent. Your brain will associate that soundscape with flow. Posture matters. You need to be alert but comfortable. Not lounging, not rigid. Sitting or standing in a way that allows sustained focus without physical discomfort. Movement breaks are essential. Here's a case study that brings this all together. Programmers are masters of flow. The best programmers regularly achieve 4 to 6 hour flow states. How? They've optimized everything. They use 2 monitors so they never break focus to switch windows. They use keyboard shortcuts for everything to maintain speed and rhythm. They block out 4-hour chunks of uninterrupted time. They work in the morning when cognitive load is lowest. They tackle the hardest problem first when they're freshest. They've learned that 15 minutes of preparation, setting up the environment, clarifying the goal, removing distractions, is worth hours of struggling in suboptimal conditions. They've learned that protecting flow is more important than being available. They've learned that flow states produce more value in less time than any other work state. You can apply the same principles to your work. Whatever your work is, writing, designing, analyzing, creating, building, flow is available to you. You just have to create the conditions for it. Here's the final insight about flow. Flow is the antidote to procrastination. When you're in flow, procrastination doesn't exist. You're not trying to avoid the task. You're absorbed in it. You're not watching the clock. Time has disappeared. You're not negotiating with yourself about whether to continue. You're just flowing. The more time you spend in flow, the less you procrastinate. because you start associating work with that peak state instead of associating work with drudgery. You start craving the work because you know it leads to flow. And that changes everything. Learn to flow. Everything else becomes easier. The procrastination-proof life. Now let's talk about making all of this sustainable for the long term. Because transformation isn't about one good week. It's about building a life where procrastination becomes increasingly rare and action becomes increasingly automatic. This is about systems thinking. Individual tactics are useful, but systems are what create lasting change. A system is a set of interconnected habits and structures that reinforce each other and make the desired behavior inevitable. Let's start with the compound effect. Small actions, repeated consistently over time, create exponential results. 1 day of action doesn't change your life. 100 days of action transforms it completely. The problem is, most people give up before they see results because they're expecting linear progress. But change is exponential. It's slow at first. Then suddenly it's massive. If you improve by just 1% every day for a year, you'll be 37 times better at the end. If you get 1% worse every day, you'll decline to nearly zero. The trajectory matters more than the current position. Are you moving toward action or toward avoidance? That's the only question that matters. Now, to sustain this trajectory, you need to build a second brain. This is a capture system for all the information, ideas, tasks, and commitments in your life. Your biological brain is terrible at storage. It's excellent at processing. But when you use it for storage, you clog up the processing power. A second brain is external. It can be a notebook, a digital app, a combination. The tool doesn't matter. The principle does. Everything goes into the system. Every task, every idea, every commitment, every piece of information you might need later. Once it's captured, your brain can relax. It knows nothing is lost. This frees up mental energy for actual thinking and doing. The weekly review ritual is how you maintain your second brain and your overall system. Every week, same time, you do a comprehensive review. This takes 30 to 60 minutes. You look at what you accomplished in the past week. You clear your inbox, your notes, your tasks. You plan your upcoming week based on your energy and commitments. You identify obstacles and pre-decide solutions. You recommit to your goals and your identity. This ritual is non-negotiable. Skip it, and your system degrades. Things fall through cracks. Commitments get forgotten. Priorities get fuzzy. The weekly review keeps everything aligned and functional. The monthly audit is the bigger picture version. Once a month, you zoom out. Are you making progress on your most important goals? Are your daily actions aligned with your long-term vision? What's working? What's not? What needs to change? This is when you make strategic adjustments, not daily or weekly reactive changes, monthly strategic recalibrations. Now here's the critical mindset shift. Course correcting without self-judgment. When you notice you're off track, you don't shame yourself. You adjust. Like a pilot flying a plane. The plane is almost never exactly on course. It's constantly drifting slightly off. The pilot constantly makes tiny corrections. No drama, no self-criticism, just, we're slightly off. Adjust, continue. You need to be the pilot of your life. Constantly adjusting, never condemning. This is how you build anti-fragility, a concept from Nassim Taleb. Anti-fragile systems don't just survive stress. They get stronger from it. Setbacks become opportunities to reinforce the system. Failures become data that improves the process. When you procrastinate, when you slip back into old patterns, instead of collapsing, you use it. You ask, what was the trigger? What was my state when this happened? What can I change in my system to make this less likely next time? Every setback strengthens your system if you respond with curiosity instead of criticism. Eventually, you reach something I call procrastination immunity. Not that you never procrastinate, but that procrastination no longer defines you. It's an occasional behavior, not a permanent identity. When it happens, you notice it quickly, you understand why, you adjust, You continue. It doesn't spiral. It doesn't derail you. It's just a blip in an otherwise functional system. Here's what creates procrastination immunity. First, deep self-knowledge. You know your patterns, your triggers, your procrastination DNA. You're not surprised by your behavior. You understand it. Second, robust systems. Your environment, your schedule, your habits, they're all designed to support action. You're not relying on willpower. You're relying on architecture. Third, self-compassion. When you slip up, you treat yourself with kindness. This prevents the shame spiral that turns one day of procrastination into weeks of avoidance. Fourth, identity alignment. You see yourself as someone who takes action. This identity is more powerful than any tactic. You act in ways consistent with your identity. Fifth, meaning connection. Your daily actions are connected to deeper purpose. You're not just checking boxes, you're building the life you want. This meaning fuels motivation when tactics fail. Now let's talk about the lifestyle design principle. Your life should support your goals by default, not by effort. This means designing your life so that the path of least resistance is the path toward your goals. Examples. If you want to read more, don't keep books on a shelf. Keep them everywhere. Next to your bed, in your living room, in your bathroom, in your bag. You'll read more because books are always within reach. If you want to exercise, live near a gym or create a home gym. Remove the friction of travel. If you want to eat healthy, don't have junk food in your house. Stock healthy options only. If you want to be productive, work in spaces designed for focus, not relaxation. If you want to learn, surround yourself with people who are learning. Your environment should make the right choices automatic. Finally, let's address creating automatic systems that work when you don't. These are habits and structures that run without conscious input. Morning routine that happens automatically. Evening routine that prepares you for the next day. Scheduled deep work blocks that exist on the calendar without you thinking about them. Accountability check-ins that happen whether you feel like it or not. The goal is to reduce the number of decisions you have to make. Every decision depletes your mental battery. Automatic systems conserve that battery for what matters. You're not deciding whether to work out. It's Monday, so you work out. That's automatic. You're not deciding whether to work on your goal. It's 6 a.m., so you work on your goal. Automatic. Build enough automatic systems, and action becomes your default state. Procrastination becomes the exception that requires effort, rather than action being the exception that requires effort. You've flipped the script entirely. This is the procrastination-proof life. Not perfect, not without challenges, but resilient, anti-fragile. A life where you're moving forward consistently, course-correcting gracefully, and building compound results that transform everything over time. When nothing works. Now I need to have an honest conversation with you. Sometimes, no matter how good your systems are, no matter how much you understand yourself, procrastination persists. And when that happens, it might not be a willpower problem or a system problem. It might be a symptom of something deeper that needs professional attention. I need to say this clearly. If you've tried everything in this masterclass, if you've built systems, understood your psychology, designed your environment, practiced self-compassion, and you still cannot function. If procrastination is destroying your life, your relationships, your career, and nothing you do makes a lasting difference, it might not be procrastination. It might be something else. Let's talk about ADHD and executive dysfunction. ADHD is not just hyperactivity in children. It's a neurological condition that affects executive function. The ability to plan, organize, initiate tasks, and sustain focus. If you have ADHD, no amount of willpower or productivity tactics will fully solve the problem. Because your brain's wiring is different. You need specialized strategies and possibly medication. Signs that it might be ADHD. You can't focus even when you desperately want to. You start many projects but finish almost none. You constantly lose things, forget commitments, miss deadlines despite your best efforts. You have extreme difficulty with time perception. Hours feel like minutes, or minutes feel like hours. You need external pressure to function at all. You feel like you're constantly trying harder than everyone else, but getting worse results. If this describes you, talk to a doctor. Get evaluated. ADHD is treatable. The right medication combined with ADHD-specific strategies can be life-changing. This isn't giving up. This is getting the help you need. Let's talk about depression and anxiety disorders. Depression kills motivation at a biological level. It's not laziness. It's not procrastination. It's a medical condition that makes even basic tasks feel impossible. If you're experiencing persistent sadness, hopelessness, lack of interest in things you used to enjoy, changes in sleep or appetite, difficulty concentrating, thoughts of worthlessness, you might be dealing with depression. Anxiety can also manifest as procrastination. When your nervous system is in constant fight-or-flight mode, when you're overwhelmed by worry, when decision-making feels paralyzing because every option seems dangerous, that's not a productivity problem. That's an anxiety disorder. Both depression and anxiety are treatable. Therapy, medication, or both can make enormous differences. If you suspect either of these, please talk to a mental health professional. There's no shame in this. Your brain is an organ. Sometimes organs need medical intervention. Let's talk about burnout. This is different from laziness or procrastination. Burnout is the result of prolonged chronic stress. You've been pushing too hard for too long without adequate recovery. Your nervous system is depleted. Your motivation is gone. Even thinking about work makes you feel exhausted or resentful. Signs of burnout. You used to care about your work. Now you feel cynical or detached. You're exhausted all the time, even after rest. You're less effective despite working the same or more hours. You feel increasingly irritable or frustrated. You've lost the sense of meaning in your work. If you're burned out, you don't need better productivity systems. You need rest, real rest. Not a weekend, not a vacation where you check email. Extended time completely away from work. Therapy to process what led to burnout. Potentially a career change if the situation that caused burnout can't be fixed. Now here's the hardest question. What if the goal is wrong? What if you're not procrastinating because you're broken? What if you're procrastinating because your unconscious knows something your conscious mind won't admit? That this goal doesn't align with your values. That this path isn't yours. That you're pursuing someone else's definition of success. Sometimes procrastination is your soul's way of saying, this isn't the right direction. And the answer isn't to push harder. The answer is to pivot. To have the courage to admit that just because you invested time in this path doesn't mean you have to stay on it forever. The sunk cost fallacy says we continue investing in something because we've already invested so much. But that's backwards. The past investment is gone regardless. The only question that matters is this the right path forward? If the answer is no, you need the courage to quit. Strategic quitting is underrated. Society glorifies persistence. Never give up. Push through. But sometimes quitting is the smartest move. Quitting the wrong goal frees you to pursue the right one. Quitting the toxic job opens space for a better one. Quitting the relationship that's draining you allows you to find one that energizes you. The art of strategic quitting requires honesty. Am I quitting because it's hard but worthwhile? Or am I quitting because it's fundamentally wrong for me? Only you can answer that. But if you're honest, you know the difference. Here's the permission I want to give you. You're not broken. If these systems don't solve your procrastination completely, it doesn't mean you failed. It might mean there's a deeper issue that needs attention. And seeking that attention isn't weakness. It's wisdom. Resources for deeper help. If you suspect ADHD, talk to a psychiatrist who specializes in adult ADHD. If you suspect depression or anxiety, talk to a therapist or psychiatrist. If you're burned out, talk to a therapist and consider extended leave. If you're stuck in the wrong goal, talk to a coach or therapist who can help you clarify your values and direction. There's no shame in getting professional help. Just like you'd see a doctor for a broken leg, you see a professional for a struggling mind. This masterclass gives you tools, but tools can't fix everything. Sometimes you need expert intervention. The important thing is this: don't suffer alone. Don't assume you're uniquely broken. Don't keep trying the same things expecting different results. If nothing works, change the approach. Get help. Adjust the goal. Do what it takes to move forward. You deserve a life where you're not constantly fighting yourself, where action feels possible, where you're building toward something meaningful. If you're not there yet, and these tools haven't gotten you there, reach out. There's always another option. There's always another path. You're not stuck forever. Act 6. Your personal blueprint. The 30-day transformation protocol. We've covered an enormous amount of information. Understanding, psychology, neuroscience, systems, tactics, inner work. Now we're going to put it all together into a customized 30-day protocol that will transform your relationship with action forever. This isn't a generic plan. This is a framework you're going to customize based on everything you've learned about yourself, your procrastination DNA, your energy patterns, your fears, your specific challenges. We're building your unique blueprint. Let's break this down week by week. Each week has a specific focus and specific outcomes. By the end of 30 days, you won't just understand procrastination differently. You'll be living differently. Week 1 is about foundation. This is where you build the infrastructure that makes everything else possible. Days 1 and 2 are for deep self-assessment. You're going back through this masterclass and identifying your specific patterns. What's your procrastination DNA? Primary and secondary. What are your 4 battery levels right now? What's your chronotype? What messages is your procrastination sending you? Write all of this down. Be brutally honest. No judgment, just observation. Day 3 and 4 are for environment design. You're implementing the anti-procrastination architecture. Set up your phone for minimal distraction. Create your commitment corner. Remove triggers from your workspace. Set up website blockers for your deep work hours. Prepare your physical space. Make the changes permanent, not temporary experiments. Days 5, 6, and 7 are for establishing your first micro-habits, not big changes, tiny ones. Your power hour, 1 90-minute anchor block, your morning and evening routines. Start small. Make them so easy you can't fail. The goal this week isn't massive productivity. The goal is consistency. Showing up every day even if the output is minimal. What success looks like by the end of week 1. You have clarity on your patterns. Your environment supports you instead of sabotaging you. You've completed 7 consecutive days of your micro-habits. You're building momentum, not from motivation, but from structure. Week 2 is about momentum. You're building on the foundation. This week, you're adding accountability and intensity. Find your accountability triad. 3 people who will check in with you weekly. Make your first public commitment. Tell someone specific what you're working on and when you'll complete it. Add a second anchor block to your day if your energy allows. Increase the intensity slightly, not dramatically, just 10% more than last week. This is also the week you face your first real challenge. Something will go wrong. You'll have a bad day. You'll procrastinate despite your systems. This is not failure. This is expected. This is where you practice the reset ritual. No shame, just course correction. You're learning that setbacks don't end progress. They're part of progress. What success looks like by the end of week 2. You've maintained your habits for 14 days. You have accountability in place. You've experienced a setback and recovered quickly. You're starting to trust the system because you're seeing results, even if they're small. Week 3 is about integration. The systems are becoming natural. You're not thinking as much about the tactics. They're starting to feel automatic. This week is about refinement and deepening. You're doing your first weekly review, looking at what's working and what's not, making adjustments based on data, not feelings, adding complexity where appropriate, simplifying where things feel too effortful. This is also the week you go deeper into the inner work. Perfectionism, fear, self-compassion. Choose one area where you're still struggling internally and focus on it. Write the self-compassion letter. Do the fear-setting exercise. Practice the B+ philosophy on something specific. The external systems are working. Now we strengthen the internal foundation. What success looks like by the end of week 3. You're 21 days in. Habits are starting to feel natural. You've made your first strategic adjustments to the system. You're addressing internal blocks, not just external behaviors. You're starting to identify as someone who takes action, not someone who tries to stop procrastinating. Week 4 is about mastery and sustainability. This is where everything comes together. You're no longer following the plan rigidly. You're adapting it to fit your life. You're experimenting with flow triggers. You're matching your most important work to your highest energy times. You're getting more done in less time because you've optimized everything. This is also when you start planning beyond 30 days. What systems will you maintain? What will you change? What's your 90-day vision? Your 1-year vision? You're not just transforming for 30 days. You're building a sustainable way of living. What success looks like by the end of week 4. You've completed 30 consecutive days of your core habits. You have a system that works for your specific life and brain. You've experienced significant progress on your most important goal. More importantly, your relationship with action has fundamentally changed. You no longer see yourself as someone who procrastinates. You see yourself as someone who acts. Now let's talk about daily rituals that make this sustainable. Every single day, you need 3 non-negotiable rituals. Morning, midday, and evening. Morning ritual. 5 to 10 minutes. You wake up. Before you check anything, before you engage with the world's demands, you connect with your intention. You review your identity statement. I am someone who takes action. You visualize your day going well. You see yourself completing your anchor blocks. You preload success. Then you start your power hour. Your most important work happens before anything else can interfere. Midday ritual. 5 minutes. After your first anchor block, you do a quick energy check. Which battery is depleted? Physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual? You address it immediately. Low physical energy? Eat something nutritious. Take a walk. Low emotional energy? Process the feeling. Have the conversation. Low mental energy? Clear cognitive load. Close tabs. Finish something small. Low spiritual energy? Reconnect with why this matters. You don't push through depletion. You recharge strategically. Evening ritual. 10 minutes. You do your evening review. What did you accomplish today? Write it down. What did you learn? What will you do tomorrow? Decide your first task before you go to sleep. Lay out your clothes if you're exercising. Open your project file if you're working. Set up tomorrow for success. Then you release the day. Whatever happened, happened. Tomorrow is fresh. You sleep with a clear conscience and a clear plan. These 3 rituals bookend your day with intention and reflection. They prevent drift. They keep you aligned. They take 20 to 25 minutes total, but they're worth hours of productivity. Weekly check-in process. Every Sunday evening or Monday morning, 30 minutes. You review your week. Did you hit your core commitments? If yes, celebrate. Write down the win. If no, investigate without judgment. What got in the way? How can you adjust the system? You're a scientist, studying your own behavior. Curious, not critical. Then you plan the week ahead, not every task, just your anchor blocks. When will deep work happen? What are the 3 most important outcomes for this week? What obstacles might arise and how will you handle them? You're not hoping for a good week. You're designing one. What success actually looks like. This is important because most people have unrealistic expectations. Success is not never procrastinating again. Success is procrastinating less often and recovering faster when you do. Success is completing more of what matters, not being busy all the time. Success is feeling generally capable instead of constantly overwhelmed. Success is liking yourself more because you're keeping commitments to yourself. Some days will still be hard. Some days you'll still avoid important work. But the trajectory changes. The overall direction shifts from stuck to moving. And that's what transforms a life. Not perfection. Consistent, forward movement. Real transformations. Now I want to show you proof that this actually works. Not theory, not concepts. Real people who applied these principles and transformed their lives. These aren't exceptional people with special abilities. They're ordinary people who stopped fighting themselves and started working with themselves. Transformation 1. The college student who went from failing to Dean's List. Her name was Emma. Junior year, pre-med, 2.1 GPA. She was on academic probation. Everyone thought she was lazy, didn't care, partied too much. But the truth was, she was paralyzed by perfectionism and fear. She'd avoid studying because if she studied and still failed, that would mean she wasn't smart enough. If she didn't study, she could blame the failure on lack of effort, not lack of ability. She discovered her procrastination DNA, perfectionist prisoner with secondary self-saboteur. She implemented the 2-minute starter. Instead of committing to study for hours, she'd commit to reading 2 pages. Just 2. Usually, she'd continue. She used the anti-schedule. She blocked her rest and sleep first, then fit studying around it. She practiced self-compassion when she slipped up instead of spiraling into shame. Within 1 semester, her GPA jumped to 3.4. By graduation, Dean's List. She got into medical school. But more importantly, she stopped hating herself. She learned she wasn't broken. She was just using the wrong approach. Transformation 2. The entrepreneur who went from idea paralysis to launched business. His name was David. He'd had the same business idea for 3 years. He'd done endless research, talked to hundreds of people, created detailed plans, but never launched. He kept finding reasons why it wasn't ready. The website wasn't perfect. The product needed refinement. The timing wasn't right. His procrastination DNA was decision dodger with secondary perfectionist prisoner. He was terrified of committing to one path because it meant closing all other options. And he was terrified of launching something imperfect. He did the fear-setting exercise, wrote out the worst-case scenario of launching, lost $5,000. Some people think it's bad. He feels embarrassed. Then he wrote how he'd recover. He'd learn from feedback. He'd iterate. He'd try again. Then, the cost of inaction. Waste another 3 years. Watch competitors launch similar ideas. Die with regret. The choice became obvious. He implemented the countdown launch method. On a specific date, regardless of readiness, he was launching. He told everyone. He pre-sold to customers. He made quitting more painful than launching. And he launched. Version 1.0. Imperfect, but real. The business didn't explode overnight. It grew steadily. Within 6 months, profitable. Within 2 years, his full-time income. But the real transformation was identity. He went from someone who had ideas to someone who executes ideas. That changed everything, not just in business, but in his entire life. Transformation 3. The creative who was blocked for years and finished her novel. Her name was Maya. She'd been writing the same novel for 7 years. She had 50,000 words, all first chapters, all different versions. She'd start, hate it, start over. She'd compare herself to published authors and feel inadequate. She'd write a paragraph, delete it, rewrite it, delete it again. Her procrastination DNA was perfectionist prisoner with meaning seeker secondary. Every sentence had to be perfect. Every scene had to matter. She couldn't write the boring but necessary parts because they didn't feel meaningful enough. She embraced the shitty first draft permission. She committed to writing 500 words per day, no matter how bad. She couldn't edit. She couldn't delete. Just forward momentum. She used the streak tracker. Every day she wrote, she marked an X. After 30 days, she didn't want to break the chain. She finished her first draft in 4 months. It was bad. Really bad. But it was complete. Then she revised it. 3 drafts later, it was good. She got an agent. She got a book deal. But the transformation wasn't the book deal. It was learning that done is better than perfect, that she could create badly and survive. That perfectionism was the block, not the solution. Transformation 4. The career professional who was stuck and got promoted. His name was James, mid-level manager at a tech company, stuck at the same level for 5 years, passed over for promotion 3 times. He procrastinated on all the projects that would get him noticed: big presentations, strategic initiatives, high visibility work. He'd stick to safe, familiar tasks. He never put himself out there. His procrastination DNA was invisible rebel with fear of judgment. He resented authority and unconsciously sabotaged himself as an act of rebellion against corporate culture. And he was terrified of being visible because visibility meant criticism. He identified his values. He realized he didn't actually want to rebel against the company. He wanted meaningful work. Once he reframed his goal from climbing the ladder to doing work that mattered, the rebellion disappeared. He worked with his boss to get assigned to a project that aligned with his values. He implemented implementation intentions. If it's Tuesday at 9 a.m., then I work on the strategic presentation for 90 minutes. No negotiation. He used the public commitment bomb. He told his team he'd present his proposal at the next executive meeting. Now, he had to deliver. Within 6 months, promoted. Within a year, promoted again. The work didn't change. His relationship with the work changed. Transformation 5. The health transformer who went from plans only to losing 50 pounds. Her name was Lisa. She'd been planning to lose weight for 10 years. She had every diet book, every workout plan. She knew exactly what to do. She just never did it. She'd start Monday. Monday came, something would come up. She'd start next Monday. Years of next Mondays. Her procrastination DNA was decision dodger with overwhelmed achiever. She couldn't decide which diet, which workout, which approach was best. And she was so busy with work and family that exercise felt like one more thing she didn't have time for. She implemented the anti-planner. Instead of planning the perfect program, she planned one action. Tomorrow at 6 a.m., I will walk for 10 minutes. That's it. No diet overhaul, no gym membership, just 10 minutes. She did it. Then she added, tomorrow I'll drink 1 extra glass of water. Small, specific, achievable. She used temptation bundling. She only allowed herself to watch her favorite show while walking on the treadmill. Suddenly, she looked forward to exercise because it meant she got the show. She built one tiny habit at a time. 10-minute walks became 20 minutes, became 30. 1 glass of water became 2, became 3. Small changes compounded. 2 years later, she'd lost 50 pounds. But more importantly, she'd become someone who takes action, someone who doesn't wait for perfect, someone who builds momentum through tiny steps. That identity transformation affected every area of her life. Common patterns in all success stories. First, they identified their specific procrastination patterns. They didn't just try random tactics. They customized based on self-knowledge. Second, they started small. None of them tried to overhaul their entire life overnight. They built momentum gradually. Third, they focused on systems, not goals. The goal was weight loss, but the system was daily walks. The goal was a book, but the system was daily writing. Systems produced results. Fourth, they practiced self-compassion. When they slipped up, they didn't quit. They reset and continued. Fifth, they got support. Accountability partners, communities, coaches. They didn't try to do it alone. Sixth, they changed their identity. They stopped seeing themselves as procrastinators trying to change and started seeing themselves as people who take action. Their advice to you. Emma says, start smaller than you think you need to. If you think you can do 30 minutes, start with 5. Build from there. David says, launch before you're ready. Done badly beats perfect never, every single time. Maya says, give yourself permission to be terrible. You can edit terrible. You can't edit nothing. James says, find the why that actually matters to you, not the why you think should matter. Lisa says, one tiny action every day beats perfect planning that never starts. These transformations are possible for you, not because these people are special, but because they applied the principles consistently. They stopped fighting themselves and started working with themselves. They built systems that made action inevitable. They treated themselves with compassion. They kept going, even when it was hard. You can do this too, not perfectly, not instantly, but progressively, one day at a time, one small action at a time. The transformation is already available to you. You just have to start. The transformation. The identity shift. We've reached the end of this masterclass, but this isn't really an ending. It's a beginning. The beginning of a completely different relationship with action, with yourself, with your life. Everything we've covered, all the frameworks and tactics and psychology, it all points to one fundamental truth. You're not trying to stop procrastinating. You're becoming someone who takes action. This is not a behavior change. This is an identity transformation. Let me explain the difference. Behavior change is, I'm going to work out 3 times a week. Identity transformation is, I am someone who takes care of their body. Behavior change is, I'm going to finish this project. Identity transformation is, I am someone who completes what they start. Do you see the difference? One is about doing. One is about being. Behaviors follow identity. You act in ways that are consistent with how you see yourself. If you see yourself as a procrastinator who's trying to change, you'll keep reverting to procrastination because that's your identity. But if you see yourself as a person who takes action, who honors their commitments, who does hard things, then action becomes natural. It's just who you are. So the question isn't, how do I stop procrastinating? The question is, who am I becoming? And the answer starts with, I am statements. Not aspirational, not future tense, present tense, as if it's already true. Because you're becoming it right now, with every choice. I am someone who takes action before feeling ready. I am someone who does hard things. I am someone who keeps commitments to myself. I am someone who handles discomfort. I am someone who finishes what I start. I am someone who fails and tries again. I am someone who treats myself with compassion. I am someone who designs my life intentionally. Write your own I am statements, the identity you're stepping into. Read them every morning, not to convince yourself, but to remind yourself, because it's already true. Every time you act despite fear, you prove it. Every time you start without motivation, you prove it. Every time you reset without shame, you prove it. The identity is already forming. You're just making it conscious. Now let me paint a picture. 1 year from now, you're looking back at this moment, the moment you decided to take this seriously, and everything is different. Not perfect, but profoundly different. You wake up and you don't dread the day. You don't immediately reach for your phone to avoid your thoughts. You have a morning routine that sets you up for success. You know what matters, and you spend your energy there. You're making consistent progress on the goals that used to just live in your head. You still have hard days, but you don't spiral anymore. You have tools, you have systems, you have self-compassion. Hard days are just hard days, not evidence of your inadequacy. You work on important projects without the constant weight of guilt and shame. You're present, you're engaged, you're alive in your life instead of numb and avoiding. Your relationships are better because you're not always distracted or irritable from the stress of unmet commitments. You sleep better because you're not lying awake feeling terrible about yourself. You have self-respect because you're proving to yourself every day that you're trustworthy, that when you make a commitment to yourself, you honor it. You've accomplished things you've been talking about for years. The project is finished, the weight is lost, the business is launched, the skill is learned. Whatever it was for you, it's done. Or it's in progress with clear momentum. And it doesn't feel like magic. It feels like the natural result of showing up consistently. Most importantly, you like yourself. Not conditionally. Not because you finally achieved enough, but because you've learned to be on your own team, to treat yourself with kindness, to see yourself clearly, flaws and all, and choose compassion over condemnation. That's the real transformation. Everything else flows from that. This life is available to you, not someday, not after you figure everything out, not after you become perfect, right now. Starting with the next action you take, the next 5 seconds, the next micro-commitment. Your future self is watching. They're hoping you choose differently this time. They're hoping you finally break the pattern. They're hoping you take the first step, even though it's scary, even though you don't feel ready, even though you're not sure it will work, because they know something you're just beginning to believe. You're capable of more than you realize. You're stronger than your fear. You're worth fighting for. Your first step. So here we are. You've spent 3 hours absorbing information, understanding yourself, learning frameworks. But information without action is just entertainment. So now, right now, we translate knowledge into movement. In the next 5 minutes, you're going to take one specific action, not plan to take action. Actually do it. This is your moment. This is where transformation begins. Not tomorrow. Not after you finish watching. Right now. Here's your action. Pause this video. Get a piece of paper or open a note on your device. Write down 3 things. First, your primary procrastination DNA type. Second, the one goal that matters most to you right now. The thing you've been avoiding that would change your life if you completed it. Third, the smallest possible first step toward that goal. And I mean smallest, not write the chapter, but open the document, not run 5 miles, but put on your running shoes. Write those 3 things right now. I'll wait. Seriously, pause and do this. Because if you skip this step, you're already falling back into old patterns. Consuming without implementing, knowing without doing. This is your pattern interrupt. Do it now. Okay, you've written your 3 things. Now, in the next 24 hours, you're going to do 3 specific things to cement this transformation, not someday. In the next 24 hours. Action 1. Take the first step you just wrote down, the smallest possible action. Do it before you go to sleep tonight if it's evening. Do it within the next hour if it's daytime. No exceptions. No negotiations. This is your commitment. Honor it. Action 2. Tell one person what you're committing to. Not just, I'm going to stop procrastinating. Be specific. I'm going to work on this project every morning for 90 minutes for the next 30 days. I'm going to exercise 3 times a week for the next month. I'm going to finish the first draft of my book by this date. Tell someone who will hold you accountable. Make it real by making it public. Action 3. Set up one environmental design element from Chapter 7. Block distracting websites during work hours. Move your phone out of your bedroom. Create your commitment corner. Remove one trigger from your workspace. Do one physical change to your environment that supports action. Not all of them. Just one. Make it permanent. Do these 3 actions in the next 24 hours and you've officially started. You're no longer someone who watched a masterclass. You're someone who's implementing. You're someone who's becoming. This week, your focus is simple. Protect your power hour. 1 hour every single day on your most important goal. Same time, same place. Non-negotiable. That's your anchor. Everything else can be flexible. But the power hour is sacred. Even if you accomplish nothing else, even if the rest of your day falls apart, if you protect that hour, you're winning. 7 days. 7 power hours. That's your week 1 commitment. This month, you're implementing the 30-day transformation protocol we covered in Chapter 16. Week 1, foundation. Week 2, momentum. Week 3, integration. Week 4, mastery. Follow the framework. Customize it to your life. Adjust as needed. But stay committed to the process. 30 days of showing up. That's all. 30 consecutive days of honoring your commitment to yourself, the community, and support. You don't have to do this alone. Find the accountability triad, 3 people on the same journey. Join online communities focused on productivity and action. Hire a coach if that's accessible to you. Use social media to document your journey. Share your wins and struggles. Connect with others who are doing the work. Isolation makes procrastination easier. Community makes action easier. There are downloadable resources in the description, the workbook with all the exercises, the implementation intention templates, the weekly review framework, the 30-day tracker, the energy audit tool. Use them. These aren't optional extras. These are the infrastructure that makes everything we've discussed practical and actionable. Final powerful message. Listen closely. Your future self is watching right now. The version of you 1 year from now, 5 years from now, at the end of your life. They're watching this moment, this choice, and they're desperately hoping you choose differently. They're hoping you stop letting fear make your decisions. They're hoping you finally trust yourself enough to try. They're hoping you take the leap, because they know what's on the other side. They know the life that's waiting for you. The version of your life where you're not constantly disappointed in yourself, where you're building something meaningful, where you're present and engaged instead of numb and avoiding, where you respect yourself because you're becoming trustworthy. That life doesn't require you to be perfect. It doesn't require you to never struggle. It just requires you to start and to keep going, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. To treat yourself with compassion when you fall, to get back up faster each time, to trust the process even when results aren't immediate. You have everything you need. You understand yourself. You have systems. You have tools. You have the knowledge. The only thing standing between you and transformation is action. And action is always available to you. Right now. This moment. Every moment. So I'm going to say this one more time. You're not lazy. You never were. You were afraid. You were protecting yourself. You were using outdated strategies that couldn't work, but now you know better. Now you have better tools. Now you have a better relationship with yourself. It's time. Time to stop dreaming and start building. Time to stop planning and start doing. Time to stop waiting for perfect and start accepting good enough. Time to stop fighting yourself and start working with yourself. Time to become the person you've always known you could be. Your future self is counting on you. Make them proud. Start now. This is the end of procrastination. This is the beginning of you.